Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City Council meeting of January 22nd, 2019, just in case you don't know. Can a roll call, please? Okay.
All council members are present.
Great. And can I get the Girl Scouts to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Girl Scout, honor your colors. We will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent job. Thank you. And so it's fitting to have a presentation by our local Girl Scouts, and the Cecilia Thompson is the Membership Development Manager for the Girl Scouts of Northern California. Welcome.
Thank you for having us present tonight. We have lots of Girl Scouts in Millbrae, but we're always looking for some more. So we're just going to give a brief information about what Girl Scouts is in this community, and of course finish off with some cookie information because that is coming.
Oh, sorry. Could you speak into the mic so that people at home can hear you? Thank you.
So Girl Scouts are the heart of our organization. We have troops in this area and then the service unit. Millbrae is part of the Crystal Springs service unit, which is Hillsborough, Burlingame, San Bruno, and Millbrae. And then they're overseen by GS NorCal, which is our council. And we were founded by Julia Gordon Lowe, and we have been around for over 100 years. So there's lots of ways to participate. Most of our girls are in troops. Girl Scouts are prepared for a lifetime of leadership. Our former Girl Scouts account for 80% of female tech leaders and 100% of female U.S. Secretaries of State, which is a small number, but they were all Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts builds leaders. The first way we do that is giving them a strong sense of self, positive values, giving them challenges and have them overcome those, forming healthy relationships, and community problem solving. Girls, most importantly, have lots of fun in our program. 95% of girls join our volunteer-led troops. So what is a troop? A troop is a group of girls led by 2 leaders and a group of volunteers. Troops are organized in different ways, but most troops have 8 to 12 girls. Troops are based in a community, at a school, or can be a group of friends from a team or preschool friends. Girls in grades K through 12 can join. They start with daisies, brownies, and then we have juniors and cadets, and then seniors and ambassadors are our high school girls. Where, when, and how often do troops meet? Our troops meet at all different times throughout the cities. They meet once or twice a month for an hour and a half, and meetings can be held at schools or different community places. Girl Scouts cost $40 for our girls. Our Girl Scout year is October 1st to September 30th, but they can join anytime during the year. Our adults are $25 registration fee, and then we are a very safe organization, and we require that they complete a background check, which is about $12. So starting your own troop in your area is something that we would love to see. If anyone is interested in starting a troop, you can check out our website at gsnorcal.org. Join us. And our troops start selling cookies on January 28th. And if you would like to find a troop that's selling cookies near you, please check out ilovecookies.org and type in your zip code, and you'll be able to find a troop that's selling at a booth near you. And hopefully a girl will knock on your door. And if you want to learn more, start a troop at your school or neighborhood, this is my information. Great. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
Are you taking cookie reservations tonight?
They are not allowed to sell until January 28th, but I'm sure one of our girls will be happy to get your information and contact you on that day.
Okay, so send one of them up here.
I will.
Councilwoman Schneider?
You want to do it? Okay, go ahead.
Councilwoman Schneider?
By the 28th.
Go to her. Go give her your...
Okay. We have a Daisy troop that comes and does our spring cleanup. Are they located here in Millbrae, or are they a regional?
We do have troops in Millbrae, and I don't know specifically that troop, but I can definitely find that out. But we have all levels in Millbrae, but we're always looking to start more, especially at the kindergarten level. We do not have any kindergarten troops currently in Millbrae that we're aware of. There are kindergartners speckled in troops, but we don't have a kindergarten troop.
Well, we probably haven't done a good job of recognizing the fact that your girls have been coming to our Arbor Day cleanup. I'm not so sure about the September one, but I always see you in April. So thank you, girls.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, would you be so kind to introduce the ladies you've brought with you this evening?
I will let them introduce themselves.
Great. Come on up.
Come on, Kaylee. All of you can come on.
If you could tell us your name, age, and where you go to school, that'd be great.
Hi, my name's Kaylee. I'm 11 and I go to Sandhill. Hi, my name is Maddie and I'm 10 and I go to Arbor Bay School. It's a private school.
Hi, my name is Sunava. I'm 10 years old and I go to Foster City Elementary School.
Hi, my name is Fatima and I am 11 and I go to Bayside Academy.
Great. Thanks for coming all the way over here. We have a proclamation to present to you, so don't go too far.
Don't sit down. You guys can come on up. You guys can be a part of this. And wave to the TV
Would the
camera.
council like to come up and take a picture of the Girl Scouts?
Sure, you're on TV.
And, I have a special gift for you. This is our city logo, and now you're ambassador to Millbrae. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Whose sister is that? So what we're doing in Millbrae is trying to we get a lot of questions about how we can get involved and what's our community about. So we're highlighting different community groups and giving people an opportunity to volunteer and get involved. So the Girl Scouts is a growing program, and they all can use some help. And so this is an opportunity for you to volunteer. And thank you, Cecilia, for doing this presentation. Can we have a picture? Yeah. Guys, come on up. With the proclamation.
Always get your credit stand right here. Minorities in Burlingame. Yes. But I think they come sometimes to Safeway too. So can't wait.
Yes.
And nobody's knocked on our doors. How's brownies?
Right here. 1, 2. Good pictures.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks, ladies. You guys did a great job. Thanks for coming. Okay, next we have a presentation by Millbrae Community Television by the Executive Director, Dana Sahai. Welcome, Dana.
Hi, thank you for having me here tonight. Dana Sahai, Executive Director of Millbrae Community Television. I just wanted to take a few minutes tonight to let the council know and the community that MCTV was able to purchase a new piece of equipment that will allow the channel to keep running. We've been having issues the last few years with the server that manages the television station. So we were able to purchase this $10,000 piece of equipment, mostly with support from the Millbrae Community Foundation. So I want to take a moment now to thank the Millbrae Community Foundation. The president, Debbie Van Wart, is here. Debbie, thank you very much on behalf of MCTV. I should take a minute to also introduce our MCTV Chairman, Tom Dowdy. Our other member, Joe Teresi, who also sits on the Millbrae Community Foundation. And I think that's everybody. But it's a really important piece of equipment that MCTV was not able to afford without support of the community and with the Community Foundation. And because of that, we can now do a lot more with the channel and keep up with the times. So I just wanted everyone to know about that. Thank you. Any questions?
Oh,
You got any,
go ahead.
Councilwoman Pappen?
I just want to thank you for all the wonderful work you've been doing all year long, keeping the public informed, working with the State of the City speech, among a ton of other things. And it really, some of the stuff that you've put up really has kept the public informed, and it is so important. So thank you and your staff for all the hard work and efforts. Really very exciting.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that, and we hope to do more to fulfill that mission.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you for all that you do. Are there any new programs or anything that you can give us a sneak peek for in the coming year?
Thank you for asking. We are celebrating 1 year of Take Notice. Take Notice is a locally produced show. One of our community producers is here. Marge Colapietra helps produce that show. We interview county elected officials. We interviewed the new county manager before he even started. We were running that on MCTV. Forgive me, I'm drawing a blank on some upcoming shows. We interviewed CHP to talk about new laws, a lot of important countywide issues that we're addressing on Millbrae Community Television. And people should know that although it's Millbrae Community Television and it's on your television in Millbrae, we produce everything online, so it goes countywide. So anyone can tune in and get useful information.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So I understand that you also have a studio.
We do have
Could you tell us about your studio, please?
Anyone is welcome to come to our studio. It's open all the time. We are a public access community television station, so we're here for the community. We are located right next to the Chakouti room. So anyone is welcome to come by at any time, check out our studio, and learn how to use the cameras and produce their own shows. And we're happy to help people to do that. So yes, please stop by.
Yeah, I understand you have a really great youth program, too.
Yeah, we enjoy having youth volunteers help out whenever they can. In fact, every year we do Art and Wine. We do a live broadcast from Broadway during Art and Wine, and we have a lot of students who come out and help with that, from local elementary school students to students from College of San Mateo and San Francisco State. It's really great.
Fantastic. And Millbrae is proud to be a sponsor of MCTV, so...
Absolutely. We appreciate all your support. Thank you.
Yeah, we're very honored. And thanks for your time. And if you want to volunteer for MCTV, it's
mctv.tv. Go there. You can learn about volunteering, and you can also watch the channel 24/7. We're on TV tonight.
And you also have a YouTube feed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can get all those links on our website, mctv.tv.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, we have a presentation from our big neighbors, San Francisco International Airport. Welcome, Doug Yakel, and Francis Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the council for the opportunity to brief you tonight. I also want to thank MCTV for the opportunity to participate in an episode of Take Notice. Great way to talk about some of the changes that are happening at the airport. So what I want to do is to, number one, make sure I can work this remote. Want to brief you a little bit on our airport development plan. This is really a long-term planning study that will inform potential future construction activity at the San Francisco airport. Which one? Sorry.
Then you could use the airport.
Okay. Sorry. Perfect. All right. I'm going to go old school here. So for starters, just a little bit of background on where SFO stands. SFO is, number one, the largest airport in the Bay Area. When we look at airline activity, SFO accounts for about 2/3 of all of the airline activity in the Bay Area. Oakland and San Jose split the remaining 1/3 of activity. SFO is the 7th busiest airport in the U.S. measured by passenger traffic and the 23rd busiest in the world. In our last fiscal year 17 and 18, we served a total of 57 million passengers. That's arriving, departing, and connecting. And that level of passenger activity really drives a lot of economic impact. There's a total of 43,000 people who hold jobs at SFO, and SFO generates about $8.4 billion in business revenue. And we also estimate that of those 43,000, about 1,500 are actually Millbrae residents, and those 1,500 earn a labor income of about $98 million. So quite a bit of economic impact. And really what the airport development plan is all about is how we get from where we're at today, 57 million, to 71 million passengers. And what's significant about that figure is 71 million is about the maximum number of passengers that our airport can handle given our current configuration. And as I'll touch on in a moment, we have no plans to expand our runway configuration at all. So essentially 71 million is about the most that SFO can handle. And we think that we'll probably reach that number in about 10 years' time. So moving forward, what is the Airport Development Program? It's really a long-range planning study. It guides our future development, and it essentially replaces a master plan which began in the late 80s, early 90s. And if I could, I'll just touch on a few construction projects that you probably see happening right now, which are still part of that master plan from the late 80s and the early 90s. So ongoing projects include, you'll see this along Highway 101, we're building a new airport hotel. It'll be a Grand Hyatt with 350 rooms, and that'll open in mid-July of this year. We're also working on a brand new Terminal 1, also visible from Highway 101. This opens in phases. The first 9-gate section of this terminal will also open in July of this year. And a little further up 101, we're building a new long-term parking garage. This will actually open up next month. So these are a couple of projects that were part of that existing master plan program that this ADP is hoping to replace. So the ADP is really going to form the basis for our environmental review, and the plan is that we're going to seek CEQA NEPA environmental approval for a host of potential projects. And then when the need arises for any one of these potential projects, we'll have already satisfied that environmental permitting process. We can move right to phasing and financing of those construction projects. So this includes potential terminal, roadway, and support facilities in the project. And again, as I mentioned, this does not include any plans to modify or change or expand our existing runway structure. So the goal of the ADP is really to continue to modernize our airport, which we've been doing for some years now, to enhance the passenger experience and really to match the terminal, the roadway, the parking experience with 71 million and that growth up to 71 million, to match it with that level of activity, which is really constrained by our runways. What the ADP won't do, it won't change any runway configurations. It won't change any flight paths in and out of SFO. It won't expand the airport's footprint, and it won't increase our runway capacity. So there's a few recommended ADP projects that we might consider moving forward in the next 10 years or so, but I just want to highlight a few in particular. One of the first ones is a reconfiguration of our existing international terminal. If you'll recall, if you've been to SFO recently, there's essentially two different ways you can go in the international terminal, two different concourses with their own separate security checkpoints, and on occasion we have customers that need to go from one side to the other, and they have to go out of security, they have to go through the checkpoint again. Really what we're looking to do is to reconfigure that main hall of the international terminal to create one consolidated single security checkpoint. This will be good from a staffing standpoint, and also would essentially make the back side of the international main hall a post-security area where you could connect seamlessly from one concourse to the other without having to go through security again. Another potential project might be the addition of another boarding area. We would call this boarding area H. It's highlighted in blue in this diagram, and it's adjacent to the BART station at SFO. This might add additional gates adjacent to our existing international terminal. And then also within the center of our airport is a domestic hourly parking garage, which was built about 40 years ago. We would look to remove that and install a new central hub garage, which would have a mix of both parking and facilities in it. We're also looking at the sharp increase in Uber and Lyft activity that we're seeing at our airport. We've already started to parcel out some categories of Uber and Lyft into the top floor of our existing parking garage. We may use this new one similarly as a place where some of this activity that's currently on our terminal roadways could be offloaded into this central garage area. The schedule for the ADP really begins this year. In early 2019, we're hoping to do a notice of preparation and scoping meetings, and by the middle of this year, be in a position where we could issue the notice of public hearing and make that draft environmental impact report available, with the hopes of by early 2020 finalizing that EIR, making it available, getting it certified and adopted. And then we would move to that process of determining when projects may be needed. And it's really subject to what changes the airport experiences in the future. Perhaps the first thing that we need to do is more focused on roadways or parking before we get into terminals. So we can't really predict what our future will bring in our industry, but this is a plan that'll help us prepare for those coming years. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions, Councilwoman Schneider?
Are you going to be bringing this to the airport roundtable?
We do plan to present this at the airport roundtable as well. Our first step is to reach out to cities one by one.
Okay. For the audience at home, we had our second ground-based noise ad hoc committee meeting this morning and basically looked at facility and infrastructure changes from 2012 to the current time. And we're trying to figure out why there seems to be an increase in ground-based noise as opposed to in-flight noise. So hopefully you're going to be looking at ground-based noise as part of the EIR?
There's a lot of things that the EIR needs to address, and it will also be addressing noise both from construction and from aircraft activity.
Okay. One of the good news out of this morning's meeting was airplanes have to turn on their own jets to run to get ready to take off. And it seems like now every gate has a plug-in so they can stay plugged in longer, which means they're running their jets less. Yes, that's less noise. It's also less air pollution. To the airlines, it's less money on fuel. So that was a good piece of good news Got to celebrate the good news. The bad news is 57 to 71 million is many, many, many more flights. So it scares me when we have gates. The City of Millbrae is also working on an active transportation plan, and this never comes up at the round table, but we know we have airport parkers. They know they can park here for 3 to 4 days without getting towed and Uber and Lyft into the airport. And I am hopeful when our active transportation plan comes, that we're starting to look at that. It impacts every single neighborhood. I had lunch with a council member from San Bruno today. It impacts their neighborhoods. And I hope that you will consider that when you're talking about Uber and Lyft. Taxis are more recognizable. So it's really an Uber and a Lyft problem. And it's just clogging up our streets and the front of our homes. And finally, any plans on adding solar?
So appreciate all your comments. Obviously, it's understandable. It's a great question. How do you get from 57 to 71 million? In terms of aircraft activity, about the maximum that our current runway configuration can accommodate is about 1,500 flights a day. That's arrivals and departures. Today, we're at about 1,250. So we're really not that far from it. So a lot of growing from 57 to 71 is based on airlines using larger aircraft. And we've already seen the effects of that as we grow. Going back to 2011, our passenger traffic has grown by about 36%. Our flight activity has only grown about 14%. And that's because airlines, rather than adding flights, are increasing the size of the aircraft that they use. Back in 2011, average aircraft at SFO held 134 seats. Today, it holds 158. And we forecast that type of growth to continue, and that's how we get to that 71 million. In terms of the roadway considerations, we'd be happy to have our traffic engineers meet with your team as you're rolling out some of your initiatives to make sure that we're aligned, because we are neighbors. We share the same space. And lastly, in terms of solar, that's an important part of as we build new terminals. Our target is to make them all LEED Gold certified or better. There's a lot of different ways we can reach that. Solar is definitely one of them, and you'll see solar panels they've already been installed, in fact, on the top of this new long-term parking garage that opened next month.
And just for the public, it's great that you go to bigger airplanes and that they're flying now, I think what they told us this morning, 85 to 100% full. The bigger the airplane, the heavier the airplane, the greater the amount of noise at takeoff, which is the noise that we get hit with basically in Millbrae, Burlingame, and Hillsborough, called backblast. It's a low-frequency noise. And up from about 79%, 80 to 85% of the flights taking off from San Francisco are taking off on runway 1, left and right, which is that noise that we're seeing and hearing an increase in noise. So it's yay, but it's also, where there's a good, there's a bad on that. So the challenge is for the airplane designers to come up with planes that get rid of low-frequency noise. And I hope that you'll stand with us on that challenge to the aircraft manufacturers, because I don't see any other solution for it otherwise.
Appreciate your comments.
Councilman Pappen.
Thank you, and thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. Could you elaborate on this long-term parking garage? How many spaces and why you felt the need for such?
I'd have to get back to you on the exact number of stalls. I believe it's at least 1,500 more stalls that we get as a result of it. We do acknowledge the fact that modes are changing even as this construction project was underway. We do think that this will add additional availability and allow us to take a look at the prices that we're charging for long-term parking. So I think that can be a good thing for customers. We also understand that the way we use this when it opens in a month may be different than the way it's being used 10 years from now. We understand that our industry is changing, and 10 years from now, we may have to repurpose facilities as a collection site for autonomous vehicles, for example. So we want to be flexible as we start planning for the future.
Okay, good to know. And this, as you can imagine, we are very interested in your roadways coming in and out there. It does impact us directly. I do want to thank your administrators for working with us, Julianne Potter, I believe. So, FYI, as of February 11th, there will now be a direct BART train from Millbrae to SFO every half an hour, and we hope that that will increase over time. to gain access there. Will SFO be providing, I know a big thing was getting part of your 43,000 employees to use public transportation. So is there any incentives being offered, BART passes or something like that? That would be helpful.
Yeah, great question, and we're also excited about the return of that shuttle, and we're planning on announcing that in conjunction with BART because we really want to get the word out about that option. In terms of employees, as we've seen BART ridership decline on the passenger sector, we're actually seeing it increase on the employee side, and we've really worked hard to make it accessible and affordable for airport employees. We've actually got a program in place where we subsidize the airport surcharge. So in other words, the additional cost that it would take to get into the airport using BART, we're covering that for employees. So they're essentially paying for the basic fare like they would going any other location. We found this in particular as we do recruiting further and further out in the 9 Bay Area counties. This is really an important option as we reach deeper into the East Bay area to attract talent to our airport, is that ability to have them use BART. So that's always going to be an important part of our employee commuting program.
Well, and we'll be watching closely. I think the ridership will improve with the regular access. It's just been exceptionally difficult. I know you guys have numbers that people who take it out of the station don't necessarily take it back because the connection is so bad. And that new connection would not have happened without you all stepping up. So thank you so much on that front. I also noticed a road sign that you're offering 30 minutes free parking these days.
We are, and that's an initiative to reduce traffic around the terminal roadways. We know that there's still private vehicles that are entering and exit our airport to pick up, drop off friends, loved ones, etc. And we wanted to use this as a way that people could do that drop off without having to go curbside, without having to go to another location, and not incur any type of financial penalty. So we continue to get the word out. It's being used. We'd like to increase the usership, so I appreciate you bringing that up.
I noticed the on the freeway sign.
Correct.
So
yes.
That's a good message.
Good. I'm glad you saw it.
As Ms. Schneider noted, the noise is exceptional and getting worse with every day, it seems. So if there are you guys looking at any sort of technology, any sound walls, anything that can assist us? I know when things get warmer, it seems like we open our windows and the noise gets louder and louder. So something and anything would help along those lines. And if we can be of assistance, let us know there. And I do know, too, you've just finished your sea level rise reports. So we look forward to taking a look at those as well, because you're going underwater before we are. So it's of great interest to us.
Sure.
So thank you. And as I noted too, San Mateo County is getting a water district or a JPA together. So we look forward to partnering with you all on that front for possible funding somewhere along the line so we can all protect ourselves from the sea level rising.
Absolutely.
But
happy to give you a separate briefing on that topic, too.
That'd be great. And thank you. This is very informational. We look forward to, it seems like you guys are always on top of everything. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We all have seen the hotel project come up pretty quickly. As your number of passengers approaches 71 million, do you think there would be the demand, or is this in the plans at all to pursue perhaps an additional hotel somewhere on airport property?
At this point, it's not in our immediate airport development plan program. We hope that there's a sufficient level of demand to warrant something like that. I think the real challenge would then be finding a suitable footprint for it. We've essentially kind of built out most of the west side of the airport, which would cause us to have to look maybe to the northeast corners of the airport, which may be a little less attractive to a traveler. And then also we'd have to figure out a way to get our light rail system out there. But we certainly need to be flexible. We're in a time where the Bay Area is growing and we're benefiting from that. So would love to see us end in a place where that's necessary.
Okay. Well, as you may know, the city of Millbrae is looking to add at least possibly 2 hotels in the coming years, and Burlingame and San Bruno would like to increase their hotel portfolio as well. It's a major part of the local economy here, so we'd like to be involved in any discussions you may be having. We welcome competition, but good to know what the market is in the area. Thank you.
You good? Okay, one more follow-up.
So this hotel, is it your, what is that little thing that moves around the airport?
Oh, the air train.
The air train, will that be feeding into the hotel, or how will?
Correct, yeah.
Oh,
and when we built the air train in 2003, we actually built that infrastructure back then with the intention of someday down the road building a hotel back. You'll recall there used to be a Hilton Hotel up until the mid-'90s. Building a hotel back in that area, so we actually already had the framework for an additional air train station. Now we're finishing the build out of that, and we think that's an important part of this hotel is the fact that it is accessible through the light rail system, very seamless access to any of the terminals.
Wow, great. Okay, thank you.
And thank you for doing your presentation. We have a proclamation, but let me ask you a few questions or make a few statements. So, as I understand, the airport's a $10 billion enterprise? Or is it more than that now?
We're approaching that level. I mean, we're operating on an annual budget that's in excess of $1 billion annually.
Oh, very good. So last time the former director, John Martin, was here, he mentioned the fact that the airport has limited space and that the travelers are all wanting to have the retail experience. And he suggested that Millbrae could be part of that mix. Is there any plans, or can we also somehow get together and talk about partnering so then we can both benefit?
Happy to connect our concessions team with your group and to talk about those opportunities. We're always on the lookout for what our customers are looking for. We're always on the lookout for good revenue generating opportunities, so we'll be happy to continue a dialogue on that.
And I really, since going through an international airport, to give you compliments. I like the quality of the restaurants and opportunities there. It's very good. Also, on the same line as the Vice Mayor Holliver, in terms of the airport hotel, do you have any reports or know about the market potential for hotels in terms of quality of hotels? Are they looking for morely 4 3-star hotels, long-term hotels, or a mix of such? Do you happen to have something like a study that?
I believe we've studied it. I don't have that at my fingertips. I know that the hotel we're opening will be a 4-star hotel, and I believe it'll be the only 4-star hotel in this area, which is a differentiation that we're hoping is helpful to us and kind of in line with our status as an international gateway. But happy to take a discussion offline further about that if you like.
That'd be I mean. To me,
I think the Westin would disagree with you, but that's okay.
I was thinking, that's pretty impressive that you can put a 4-star hotel right on the airport property. That's just goes to show you the demand for a good hotel experience in the immediate area. One other, I'd like to thank you for working with us with the noise. I know it's kind of like going to Antarctica and complaining about the snow, but it gets to a level where it gets a little bit, loud. And I realize we have trains and freeways too, so it's not the only source of noise. But there are some times when we smell jet fuel in the area, and I live maybe half a mile away from the airport runway, so I can smell the jet fuels on a warm day. So I'm hoping that you could also take that back and see if we could address it, because I'm pretty sure jet fuel is not a really healthy thing to smell.
Well, and just a quick comment on that. One of the priorities for the airport is really to be an environmental steward. Had the first LEED Gold airport terminal in the U.S. Another priority the airport's working on right now is to establish a biofuel hub. We've already operated the longest flight in the world using biofuel. 30% blend with regular jet fuel. Obviously, a biofuel burns far less, generates far less greenhouse gas. No airport has really found an effective way to make this sustainable such that every airline at that airport can use biofuel, and that's one of the areas of focus that we're moving forward on. We just signed an MOU with 4 major airlines and 4 fuel supply companies, Shell, Chevron, and others, to really try and move the dial on this, because the big elephant in the room in aviation is all of the greenhouse gases that are emitted by aircraft. And if we can find a way to reduce those emissions, I think we'll really be onto something.
Okay, great. Councilwoman Schneider, one more.
Along the same lines, residents in Millbrae talk about a kind of a black soot. I at first thought that it was the jet stream dropping pollutants from Asia, because they come over and with their coal burning plants, a lot of that particulate matter drops on us. But it happens during the times when the flights are taking runway 19, which takes off over Millbrae and Burlingame. I assume that you're going to be looking at all the forms of air pollution in the EIR. We don't get to talk about it at airport noise, but I'd love to see more detail on that. And again, a number of residents, they usually see it on their outdoor furniture, and if they clean it every couple of weeks, it's back every couple of weeks. And it's weird because prevailing winds don't go in our direction most of the time, but they seem to be hitting us.
I know that one of the things that's newer for an organization that goes through an EIR and goes through a CEQA and a NEPA process is what's called a human health assessment. This is something that wasn't required maybe 10, 20 years ago. So you'll be seeing more information come out of this ADP process than has ever been done before.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. So I have a proclamation. Don't go away.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
We look forward to having the airport come and do presentations, and we are going to have a Council of Cities meeting in May with the director, Ivar, what's last? Ivar's last? Satero, who's a Millbrae, I guess, originated from Millbrae. Yeah, so born and raised. So very exciting. So let me just read a few items here. Let's see. International Airport is the busiest airport, 7th busiest, as you already showed, and 23rd busiest in the world, and the leading edge in airport environmental and social sustainability initiatives. And you're undergoing the ADP project, the Airport Development Plan for 2016, which will accommodate 71 million passengers, 500,000 aircraft operations annually. And the airport has earned quite a bit of money for Millbrae in taxes, so we appreciate that. So thank you very much for being good partners.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, I just want to thank staff for putting helping to get these presentations together. Lena, Elaine, thank you very much. Tom. Okay, so let's moving on to the agenda overview. City Manager Tom Williams.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Lee, members of the City Council. I would like to bring to your attention that on Thursday, January 31st, from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m., the San Mateo County Human Services Agency will conduct its biennial one-day homeless count. Collecting strong data on the number, characteristics, and service needs of those experiencing homelessness in our community is a critical component for local planning and program development. So to collect this data, San Mateo County will utilize over 350 volunteers during the early morning hours on January 31st to count individuals who are unsheltered in each census tract in the county. So they would really appreciate everyone's support in volunteering to collect this data. Volunteers will participate in a 2-hour training and participate in a one-day homeless count on January 31st, as I mentioned, from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. To volunteer, you can log on to the City of Millbrae website, and there's a link to a survey, the One Day Count 2019, and you can sign up and answer a series of questions and volunteer. So we'd encourage everyone to look at that, and if they can, volunteer and sign up for the one-day homeless count. Also, Millbrae Library is now fine-free as of January 7th of this year. The studies have shown that late fines can be a significant barrier to library access and drive borrowers away, particularly among individuals with lower fixed income. Currently, 8% of San Mateo County Library card holders, which is 165,000 people, currently have their cards blocked due to fines. So as of the 7th of this month, those fines are now lifted, but there still will be a charge for replacement fees. So if somebody doesn't eventually turn in their materials and it's lost, they will be charged for the replacement. I also would like to bring to your attention that residential burglaries, a public service announcement from our sheriff's office, that they would like to advise the public of recent residential burglary attempts in the region, not just Millbrae, but as you probably see on TV and read, it's a problem throughout not only our county, but other counties in the Bay Area. And so they would like for you, the Sheriff's Department, would like to have everyone take steps to combat these incidences. Many residential burglaries do occur when residents are not at home or appear not to be home. And so to deter would-be burglars, keep doors locked, alarms set, use exterior and interior security lights, and keep security cameras in good working order. And if you have an upcoming vacation, there's a service that the Sheriff's Office does provide. You can contact their non-emergency number to request housing checks while you're on vacation. And that number is 650-363-4911. Again, 650-363-4911. That number is also on our website, city's website. So if you see anything suspicious in your neighborhood, please don't hesitate to contact and call 911 for emergencies. And the non-emergency line for the sheriff is 650-363-4911. Again, and that is on our website. And so just several things to remember. Try not to leave valuables in plain sight through open doors and windows. Actually, in your vehicle as well. Remove all valuables from your vehicles. Make your home appear as if someone is there by leaving the lights on, music playing, televisions. If possible, install and use security cameras. Secure and lock all windows and doors. Do not leave a spare key out anywhere. And secure and maintain yard, patio, and outdoor open spaces. And trim concealing landscaping if possible to ensure visibility. I'd also like to mention what a great job that our Public Works Department did over the weekend on these torrential rains and storms and winds. Our crews were out 24/7. We didn't have any serious problems, but a significant amount of rain, as you know, and our guys did a great job. So I thank them for keeping us from flooding. So moving on to the agenda this evening. Item number 2, our calendar of events. I would like to bring to your attention 2 important meetings. Tomorrow night, we have a City Council study session on our Transit-Oriented Development 1 project. That starts at 7 p.m. And also due to the Martin Luther King holiday, the Planning Commission meeting was rescheduled for Thursday evening at 7 p.m. this week. Under item 2, there's reports of bills and claims, and also a report out of closed session on January 8th, 2019. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the meeting minutes. Meeting minutes for the regular meeting of December 11th, 2018, and the regular meeting of January 8th, 2019. There are no reports this evening from city committee or commission chairs. Then after that, there's public communication. Following public communication, we move to our consent calendar. Item number 5 is to receive an informational report about a bequest from the Jerry Moore Road Trust for the Millbrae Recreation Center specifically for senior programs. Item number 6 is an informational report on the CASA Compact. Item number 7 is an update on the utility box pilot painting program. Item number 8 is to accept by motion the comprehensive annual financial report known as a CAFR for the 2017-18 fiscal year. And item number 9 is to consider adoption of a resolution in support of the Core Company's submission of an application for the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program Grant for their affordable housing project on TOD2. It's part of the Gateway at Millbrae Station development project, and then authorizing the city manager or designee to sign a letter agreeing to enter into negotiations for an agreement with the core companies to complete certain bicycle and pedestrian improvements adjacent to the project, both on-site and off-site. There are no public hearings this evening. Moving on to existing business, item number 10 is an informational report on the Recreation Center Restoration Project. Item number 11 is a continuation of the January 8th, 2019 study session and continuing to receive information on the design review permit application for the Gateway at Millbrae Station project, known as TOD2, and for future public hearings where the design review permit will be considered for approval. And then we do have 2 items on the closed session agenda this evening following the regular calendar. So with that, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any comments, questions from the council? Councilwoman Schneider?
City Manager, are we pulling the minutes? Or are you letting them go forward?
I apologize. On the January 8th, we did have a request to pull those meeting minutes.
Okay. So we're not going to be voting on January 8th. All right. Okay. I have a report from our city attorney, Mr.
Yes.
Oh, wait.
City Council.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just a minute. Councilwoman Leva.
Sorry, on existing business with regards to item number 11, it's informational only, or is it considered for approval, and is there a motion?
No.
What I'm asking.
Just information only. It's part of the continued study session.
So
and
it's,
so
there's no vote tonight.
okay,
yeah.
thank you.
In the future, we'll notice it for a public hearing, and that's when the action will be taken.
Perfect, thank you.
City attorney, please.
Council met in closed session on January 8th to discuss existing litigation. There were no reportable actions from that session.
Thank you very much. A riveting report. It's falling on to a comment by Councilwoman Schneider about long-term parking. Chief Conkle, I'm sorry to throw this on you, but I know we have a program to address people who are abusing our hospitality here by using the city as long-term parking. Could you give us an update, please? See what happens when you come to meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council, Mr. City Manager. As reported in a prior meeting, we are still woefully short right now as far as our ability to enforce parking laws. We have a community service officer that's dedicated to that. Deputy sheriffs can do it as well, but they're generally busy with calls for service. So we have interviewed 3 people to fill our 3 positions. All 3 are in backgrounds. I hope to be up to full staff with CSOs within hopefully a month or 2. In the interim, if you see things, we have a parking hotline, and the number eludes me, but I know it's on the website. That is checked daily by our CSO. You can email the city or you can email me. On our city website, if you have a comment, it goes to the city and then it comes to me within the day. I just answered one this morning, and we were able to take enforcement action. We gave a number of citations and issued some 72-hour warnings based on a citizen complaint. So we all are very sensitive to parking issues. We know it's very important, and we're doing our best to address them.
Thank you, Chief. Is there any thought about putting together an app that people can just enter information so it goes to the Sheriff's Department about things they see or things they want to report?
Yeah, we discussed that. I talked to our IT people a bit about it, and they want to look into it a little more. Because of how we're set up and our relationship with some of the cities, it makes it kind of complicated if the county sets up an app for a city. So I think that's being looked into, but I don't have any further information on that other than that I brought that to our technical services unit when it was discussed earlier.
So maybe that we can put that on our list to do, city manager, look at opportunities. I know there's a lot of canned apps out there that we can probably utilize without having to recreate the whole thing.
Absolutely. The more information we have, the better, and it'd be easier on the enforcement side. So I like the idea a lot.
Okay, thank you very much for doing that. And keep up good work and please stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. Actually, following up the comment, maybe 72 hours is kind of long by the time, over a weekend. Yeah.
It's law.
Okay.
Change law.
We can be more strict than straight law, though.
You can adopt stricter requirements, but the general standard, if it's not a marked zone, is that someone can park for 72 hours before, and that's state law.
Councilwoman Schneider, do you have a question?
I think that's, if we can get the active transportation plan in front of us, we can start looking at that. I think for cities like ours, where we are a mass transit location, we have to come up with stronger rules. So I agree with, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right, any other? Okay, great. So moving on to approval of minutes, we have one, and the December 11th. I do have a change where it says under, where is it? See, what page is that? Page 2. It says, I'm sorry, I just lost it. Maybe it's not page 2. Oh yeah, page 3. It says, Mayor Lee thanked everyone, extended his appreciation to this council and staff. And then he asked everyone to leave. I didn't ask people to leave. I invited people to the party. So. Please leave, yes. Right. Okay, thank you.
I'll be voting no on this. I have been talking to the city manager about the style of minutes that Millbrae has been taking for about the last year, and it leaves out comments said during the minutes. It makes for a cleaner, shorter set of minutes, but it isn't a true reflection of the meeting. So one change was made at my request, but the other change was not, so I'm a no vote tonight.
Okay, thank you. And also, following on that, if anybody wants to, these meetings are taped and on YouTube and recorded by MCTV, or you can go to mctv.tv and see a link there, so you get the whole flavor of what these meetings are all about. Okay, so I have a motion by Councilwoman Pappen, second by Vice Mayor Holliber. Your votes, please.
The minutes for the regular meeting on December 11th and the regular meeting on January 8th, with changes from Mayor Lee for the December 11th meeting, passed with a vote of 4-1, with Councilmember Schneider dissenting.
Did you have a comment? 11th, yeah. Not January 8th.
We pulled January 8th, just December 11th.
Okay, correction. The vote was for the regular meeting on December 11th, with the changes from Mayor Lee, passed with a vote of 4-1, with Councilmember Schneider dissenting.
Thank you. Okay, no oral reports, public communication. I have one slip from Mr. Lopez. Mr. Lopez, would you like to come up? And there's 3 minutes, and when you see the yellow light, that's your 30 seconds warning. Thank you.
Good evening, Rafael Lopez. The sheriff already came up and pretty much answered all my questions for tonight. But Mr. Williams, can you look into the cost effectiveness of getting an automobile license plate reader? You know, the kind that they have on the roofs of the cars, and they drive along the parked cars, and they take pictures of the license plates. And what it does is it marks the date and the GPS location of the car at that very moment. And, you know, the 72 hours can be enforced that way. So you know if someone's been there for more than 72 hours. And we need parking enforcement not only in the downtown area, but the residential areas as well. I always see downtown parking enforcement there, but nowhere in the neighborhoods. Millbrae, don't you know that this is a source of income for the city? Currently on Lincoln Circle, there are cars parked for more than 3 months in the exact same spot. Once in a long while, I see an orange sticker on someone's car window and be happy. But unfortunately, the car right next to it should have gotten one as well. Maybe let's look into getting residential parking permits. That's another way for Millbrae to make some money. And what about the people who park their cars around the freeway neighborhoods and then call an Uber to take them to the airport? They don't want to pay for the airport parking. Sometimes cars are parked there for more than the allotment of 72 hours. Millbrae, there goes some more money going down the drain that we could be making for the city. Parking, enforcement, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Okay. No other public comments? Okay. On to the consent calendar. I understand, Councilman Schneider, you wanted to pull one of the items off?
Yes, if we could pull just really quickly the item on core housing, and it's mainly for a discussion on a bike path.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to pull 5 and 6 just for importance. I think 5 is exceptionally generous and should not necessarily be on consent.
Very good. Anybody else want to pull anything else? Okay, so we have 2 items left, number 7 and 8. Can you clear the board for me, please? Okay, you've got a motion from Councilwoman Schneider and a second from Councilwoman Oliva. Votes, please.
Items numbers 7 and 8 on the consent calendar passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Pappen.
If staff could report on this, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Councilmember Pappman and Mayor Lee. I'm assuming you're referring to item 5 and a bequest from the Joe Mary Road Trust. We were surprised to receive these funds in the spring of 2018. We received a partial distribution of $37,485, with understanding that these funds were directed to be used for senior programs at the Millbrae Senior Center, 477 Lincoln Circle. Obviously, there's not a senior center there now, but the timing works very well with our need to find funding for the Millbrae Recreation Center. So we have taken those funds, we've booked them into the Millbrae Recreation Center account. They're booked as what are called restricted funds. We do that with funds that have to be, for example, by state law or other legal items need to be used in a certain way. So those funds are held so that, for example, as the recreation center is built, we could purchase items specific to the senior programs. So we are, as staff, are very thankful for this this bequest and have corresponded with the trust.
And if we could have a little background on Mary Jo, how do we pronounce it? Rhodey? Joe Mary, excuse me. Joe Mary Rhodey. I think for the record, this is very important, and we should document her bequeath here and some words about her, because this is a very, very generous gift and greatly appreciated. So even as we progress along with hopefully renovation, rebuilding the recreation center, I don't think this should ever be forgotten.
Okay. Madam Mayor, would you like to come up and add your comments?
As former Mayor Colapietro said, Charlene
Absolutely.
could provide the information there.
So we can put together perhaps a follow-up report and resolution.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Recognize this.
Or a letter.
And a formal thank you, I think, from the council, too, please.
Vice Mayor Oliver.
Yes, this is an incredibly generous donation. And thank you, Councilwoman Pappen, for bringing this up tonight. I know this is, I'm sure, very premature. We haven't begun constructing the new center yet, but maybe if we can make a note to perhaps have a plaque or something in the new building when that is being built to commemorate Ms. Rhodey and this contribution that she's made.
Councilwoman Oliva.
And are the heirs is the trust local? Are they local to us?
I believe the funds were coming from Sacramento, but I'm doing that from memory. I'm sorry, I didn't bring that information with me.
So for a proclamation, it would be nice if we can have it presented if possible.
We will see if there's someone available, absolutely.
And for clarification here, playing on what Vice Mayor Holliver said here, one of the aspects is also looking at having a donor wall. So we want to make sure this is not forgotten and that she and the trust are recognized throughout, please.
Absolutely.
No, we don't need a motion. Moving on to anything else? Let's move on to the CASA compact.
Can we move to approve this? Or is it just informational?
Oh, you want to
Sorry,
just...
it's informational, excuse me.
Oh, but we always vote on consent.
Yeah.
It's
just to accept the report, so, we don't need to.
Okay.
Do we have a CASA report?
Yeah, and I asked that item 6 be pulled for explanation here. There's a lot of discussion on what CASA stands for. We're not going to get into the details of the 42-page report, but the mayor's letter in opposition, several cities' letters in opposition to this compact. Mr. Mayor, you were there. Would you like to enlighten in just...
Yeah, sure. Thanks for putting me on the spot.
Mm-hmm. You were there.
Did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to, if it's helpful, Mayor, on page 2 of the staff report, there's a list of items that the compact had fallen short that we had recognized just for assistance.
Thank you.
Costly government.
It'd be easier just to read it off. But in summary, I think that it was basically a roadmap put together by housing advocates and some corporations. The chairman and the vice chair were developers, and there was very little input by local government, and they weren't well included in this. This is kind of a I think everybody agreed that the concept of building housing is critical, something we really need, and we need to do it quickly. And that's why some people voted for this. They felt that they needed to put something out there through MTC and ABAG. So MTC is the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. They basically vote for funding for transit in the Bay Area. And ABAG is the Associated Bay Area Governments, which is basically kind of a housing umbrella group that helps cities with their insurance. Millbrae gets their insurance through ABAG. And I sit on the executive committee. And I did not vote for this. And the reason I did not vote for it was because of the shortcomings. And I felt that as a roadmap, it was very one-dimensional. And I felt that it was very short-sighted. And it would give excuse to the legislatures just to go down this road. I felt that there wasn't transit wasn't addressed. So it wasn't like we should build transit to where people want to live. We shouldn't just build housing around transit. We should absolutely should, but it's not going to be the answer to housing. Because I asked that question, is it going to solve our housing issues? And they said no. So I said, why aren't we looking at different things too, and looking at approaching this different ways? And they said, well, we got to get something out there. And I was like, no. Once you see the roadmap, that's the only thing they're going to do. They're not going to look at this other stuff. And why is it the taxpayers on the hook for this whole thing? It has very little contributions from the corporations, which we thank for the jobs, but they're bringing in thousands of jobs and they're expecting the taxpayers to pay for their housing, and that's not. I don't think that's fair. I think they just at NPR this morning they talked about everybody needs to contribute, but there is no contribution from the corporations. So yes. Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, this also ties in with an important bill that's hasn't been introduced, SB 50. which has to do with zoning and housing zoning around transit stations. Obviously, it's very critical to the city of Millbrae. We have increased housing density around our transit station and actually permitted housing in the BART area, which had not been permitted in the previous station area plan that was approved about 20 years ago. But I think this is important that we retain, while we do support housing, we did approve 844 housing units early last year. It's important that we retain at least some control and not be dictated from Sacramento where we can and can't build housing. So perhaps this could be an item that we could bring up at a future council meeting to maybe have some type of vote on a resolution to send to our local legislators.
Councilwoman Snyder.
Since I'm newly assigned to ABAG, will you provide me notes on background on this? For the public, ABAG, when you do go to meetings, they usually break us out into small cities and big cities. So when I have attended ABAG, I've gone to the small city ones. Did this become a small city, big city issue too, or strictly them taking our money and they'll give it out to?
Well, that was the other proposal, is that they would create another agency to collect the money. So basically, our money would go to this agency, and we might not get any of that money. So that's the other issue, and it's one size fit all. So it's questionable if we get any benefits from this at all. And then on top of that, they don't take into consideration the economic impacts. So a city of our size with only 10% economic base, this could mean bankruptcy for our city. This could mean a lot of our fixed income people can't afford to live here because we'll have to raise the taxes to make up the differences, to pay for the services and we are building. The city's expected to build at least 2,300 more units, and we're pushing for that. We're working hard for that, but we still need I think a reasonable balance in housing is required.
Just if I can get this straight, so they want to come in and tell a community that you need to build more housing, but when you've got a city like Millbrae that is predominantly housing and we need the commercial mix, they are going to take away our ability to have that commercial mix.
Correct.
That's one aspect, yes.
Councilwoman Oliva.
I think it's best said in our notes and in the background, basically that.
Can you speak into your mic, please? Thank you.
Basically, it's the first step towards a solution to housing with majorly fatal flaws. So while we can all agree that there is a crisis of some sort, of some magnitude, this is not the answer.
Well, I mean, it's not perfect by any means. Some people feel that it's a good first step, but I feel that it's also a roadmap, and we want to start off on a good footing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the key here, and as Vice Mayor Holliber pointed out here, the legislature, Senator Wiener, people see this and they automatically go down the road that legislation is going to control all the local jurisdictions. They're basically going to take away zoning input from jurisdictions. It removes a lot of local control. And as you pointed out, our sustainability and survivability here depends on a balance between commercial and residential. And so I wanted to bring this to people's attention. It's referred to as CASA.
CASA Compact.
The CASA Compact. Thank you for voting against it. We hope to be clear. Senator Wiener is going to be appearing before the Legislative Committee of CCAG coming up, and we hope to give him alternative ideas to assist in providing housing without penalizing local jurisdictions like Millbrae. And also of concern is the governor's recent budget statement that he's contemplating holding transportation funding hostage based on housing output. We get a significant amount of money from the state. When we say transportation money, we're talking about road repairs, all kinds of different funding. And to really just penalize jurisdictions based on their housing output is not appropriate, not fair. And Mr. Oliver?
Sorry, through the chair. We don't receive that money from the state. We pay into it.
Yes.
All residents statewide, regardless of whether you're in an urban, rural area. If you drive a car, then you're paying into that fund.
Thank you for the clarification. So we pulled this for discussion because it is exceptionally important to all of us. And there's no simple cookie cutter approach that the Casa Compact is going to solve here.
Yeah, and my other two reasons is that I'm afraid that if this will get housing in the short run, but for the long run, it's not sustainable because the NIMBYs, the people who not in my backyard, will be very inflamed by this just bulldozer approach, and they will vote in their people who will set housing back 10 years. So it's not sustainable. And the other thing too is that if they don't consider the economics of how we're going to pay for these things, people can't move into these housing anyway because the taxes, they can't afford to pay the taxes. If they're renting, they can't afford to pay the rent because the taxes are going to be passed on to the renters and they can't afford that. So it's not affordable. And there's really not much mention about building BMRs, below market rate housing. So it's got a lot of, they said it's not perfect, but they say we got to start somewhere, but I don't think it's a good start. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we are moving on. No public hearings. What?
Number 9.
Oh, number 9. Oh, I thought we voted for number 9.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Schneider.
I pulled
if I may, also in your purple folder, there's some additional information. There's a map of our existing and future bike lane that may be of help for you on this item.
My apologies, Councilman Schneider.
Deanna Hilbrand's Deputy City Manager and Senior Engineer Andrew Yang is here. We can answer some questions.
Well, the main reason that I pulled this is I serve on CCAG's, the City and Council Association of Governments Bike Pedestrian Committee, and we also have Christopher Del Negro in the audience, who is part of our City Millbrae Bike Pedestrian Subcommittee. And one of the problems that Millbrae has, and Chris, please correct me, but apparently Millbrae is the worst city in terms of connectivity of commuter bike lanes. So the way the memo was written, it put a concentration on running cyclists down Hemlock and then over to Aviador to get into the BART station from the east side. And okay, that is one aspect, but the main thing that we talk about at the county level is commuter connectivity, which means if you're coming from South San Francisco, you come down Centennial, you hit San Bruno, San Anselmo, Millbrae, San Anselmo, and in a perfect world at Center, you pick up what will be a new route running along the west side of the railroad tracks. Granted, there are issues, there are problems there because of access with transportation agencies, but that would be a straight path through the west side of the BART station and then connect with the brand new bicycle trails that Burlingame has put on California. So I pulled this because the emphasis in the staff report was for a more convoluted pathway. I'm not saying it's bad, I just want to make sure that we recognize that long-term commute connectivity, rather than El Camino Real, which is so dangerous, is to try to come up with a safer alternative route. And I don't know if Dr. Del Negro wants to add anything to that.
If you'd like to, come on up to this podium, please.
But connectivity is the big buzzword in grant funding right now.
So I've actually read this piece on the agenda item, and I'd say the one problem we have here is that you're having to cross the railroad track twice on a bicycle. We're going to have high-speed rail coming through here. Having going from west side to east side back to west side within less than a quarter of a mile just does not seem like a rational approach to trying to create a regional bike route when we have just a small section of trying to connect Hemlock to Center in some way, requiring some partnerships and some land work with the regional authorities and SFPUC. So that is the issue, is staying to the west side of the track on a north route. South route.
And as I mentioned to the city manager when we were talking about this, the neighborhood on Bayside Manor, especially Aviador, they are adamantly opposed to having a very active bike path running through them. And one of the things we've learned on CCAG, BPAC, is the door zone. And Aviador is very narrow, many cars, all times of day on the street. And if you're riding your bike quickly and somebody opens a door, you can get killed. So there's not a really good opportunity to remove a door zone on Aviador because of its width.
Councilwoman Pappen.
Yeah, I think this is proposed temporary because when we're talking about high-speed rail, we're hoping to remove as many grade crossings as possible, which would include the bike routes. And we've also talked about restructuring El Camino to make it safer. So understand the concerns moving forward here, but I think this is temporary, given current build-outs and future events.
So we had a pretty limited time frame. The project was accelerated a bit. I think they were looking at a future cycle and found themselves very competitive for a sooner cycle. But we have been flexible both in the resolution. We recommended some projects. There are some financing limitations and also some grant funding limitations. So there's a radius near the station that we need to be looking at, as well as the funding that is available for this type of activity. But I think there is some flexibility, and staff will look at where that exists between now and the time the application is submitted or the time that an MOU is negotiated. But I think the important point is to support this application. A big component of it is a housing loan to move the affordable housing project forward. And the grants are something to move some existing projects of the city forward. But certainly we'll take those items into consideration along with the grant requirements and along with the funding that would become available and work towards the best recommendation. And council would see the final MOU before it is agreed to.
Again, very happy with the idea. No problem with the resolution. Just want to make sure we've got the flexibility. So thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Councilwoman Schneider, for bringing it up. I also have one comment that's for the future bike paths. When I was contemplating biking to work in San Francisco, there's no contiguous path. I do not like to bike on El Camino. I do not like to bike in the residence for the exact reason that Councilwoman Schneider pointed out. It'd be great if we had a dedicated lane like they do in South City. That's just the safest and the most efficient and expedient way. They do have dedicated bike lanes, San Mateo all the way down Redwood City. From actually Burlingame all the way down to Redwood City. I don't understand why it just stops in Millbrae, and so it'd be nice to connect with the rest of the other cities.
Just to add to that, and I've been doing so much extra reading right now. My understanding is Caltran, maybe not Caltrain, Caltran has been given an extra push to make just what you're talking about more, to make it happen, to not be as difficult to deal with as they are to deal with. And I can't remember where I read it. I've just been reading lots of journal articles, but we might want to touch base with that. We have the widest section of El Camino. We certainly could have a dedicated lane, and we need to fight for it.
Councilman Pappen.
Yeah, I'm a little unclear on this resolution here. Is it simply for the to work with CORE on a bicycle application here, or are we getting into a contract with them for the affordable housing?
No, we're not getting into a contract with them. This is just a resolution to support the application. If they're successful, then we will sit down with them and enter into or negotiate an MOU for the distribution of the funds. Our share is $2 million for the bicycle and pedestrian improvements.
Only the funding for improvements, transportation improvements, not related to the housing. The housing is a loan program that would be the responsibility of CORE.
Okay, it's just a little unclear the way it's written. Thank you.
Okay, so is this correct? Okay, can I clear the...
Clear the board.
Clear the board, please. Okay, Councilwoman Schneider. Councilwoman Oliva, your votes, please.
Item number 9 passed unanimously.
Okay, let's see. All right. Thank you, everybody. No public hearing. And down to existing business, going to report on the recreation restoration project. And I'd like to also mention that our subcommittee comprises of Councilwoman Pappen and Vice Mayor Holliver.
And 2 members of Park and Rec.
Oh, and 2 members of Park and Rec. Can you tell me who?
Dr. Del Negro.
Dr. Del Negro.
Dan Quigg.
And former Mayor Dan Quigg. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Lee and council members, Deputy City Manager Deanna Hilbrantz. I wanted to just give you a brief presentation. I want to let you know this is a teaser. You will see this in more detail with Group 4 on February 26th. But we did want to provide you with a staff recommendation for moving forward and take direction and keep our efforts focused in the best place from your perspective. So at this point, as the general obligation bond measure did not pass, we had proposed an early site package, meaning that we would do some site preparation work in the summer. At this point, we're looking at holding off on that activity as financing gets further defined. Group 4 also did some work to identify some program or funding options to help with basically keeping costs down if it made sense. They'll go into some more detail here, but we did look at, for example, the community room being separated, or looking at the total cost of preschool, and that was to look at funding opportunities. So, for example, if we could get funding from other organizations through a capital partnership or perhaps through the county. So we wanted to know what the cost of that area would be, that programmatic area. So these are some of the diagrams that you've seen as we've gone through the process. There were 2 designs that we'll be looking to you on the 26th at a study session to make a determination. As Group 4 has gotten further into their design process, they have identified the cost difference between the 2 designs. So that can be one of the factors that you visit as you work with them on February 26th. So again, they broke out some possible bid alternates to look at. Again, they'll go into much more detail on February 26th, but to understand the cost of some components. I think one thing that's important to note, for example, with the bid alternate of the community room, building just a community room is not just going to be that $6 million, because all of the mechanicals and those types of things, the main functionings, are coming off of that main building. So, and it's a much smaller building than what we had before, so it wouldn't be the solution to the recreation center need for the community. Again, the preschool option is presented to consider in terms of looking at capital partners, and that is one of the items we'll talk about in the as one of the recommended options we wanted to talk through. So these items have been shared, and that's why we're bringing this to you, even though Group 4 will go into it in more detail in February. We've shared this information with the Community Center Subcommittee, the Advisory Committee, and the Parks and Recreation Commission, and taken in feedback. And we wanted you all to at least have the same information that they have, even if just at a high level. So all of the committees and commissions have understood the need for some flexibility in the funding strategy. Staff is looking at a lot of options for how we can try to bring this funding package forward, and is currently working on a Proposition 68 grant right now, and any other options available. They both like both design options. I think there was a light preference for the lanterns, but understand the cost difference and respect that that's still a significant structure for the city. So, and also consider that if there was a decision to not include the community room as a cost savings idea, there is some potential lost revenue. That is an area that would potentially bring revenue to the city as a large facility available to rent out. So these just some high-level views of the designs. So the porch, this is the entry. Again, there'll be flyovers and a lot more detail with Group 4 next month. The view from the park, from Lincoln Circle and Lincoln Circle East. And this is the lanterns proposed design from the entry, the side, west and east Lincoln Circle. With that, we wanted to get authorization and direction. The first being to issue a request for statements of interest for licensed preschool and early childhood recreation operations partnership for the Recreation Center project. So what we're hoping to identify is a potential capital partner who would then want to operate the early childhood education preschool program on a long-term basis. We've got a draft request for statement of interest done at a very high level, hoping to see if there's for example, nonprofits that can draw in funds that we cannot draw in. or that type of thing. So that is one request for direction from council. And also, we wanted to get your weigh in on next steps, particularly around the concept of whether we want to move forward with additional contracting for schematic or construction drawings, which have a significant cost. So we're looking for direction on the recommendation that prior to moving forward with these drawings and documents, that we continue working towards the comprehensive financing package, reducing the risk of spending additional funds without having a total funding program in place. If you're in agreement with this recommendation, at the February 26th council meeting, we recommend that you receive the presentation and choose a final design so that the final design report can be prepared by Group 4, and then staff will work on the financing package and bring back a proposed contract at a future date for schematic and construction drawings. So with that, I wanted to take any questions.
Councilman Snyder.
I heard part of this at the end of the BPAC meeting last week. So basically, between the two designs, we're talking about $800,000 difference, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so $800,000 out of $30 million. And Group 4 talked about that they already had drawings for what the two different options would look like from Lincoln. So all of the people living in the apartments on Lincoln Circle, what would they be looking at? And they didn't show them last week at the Park and Rec meeting. And are we going to have to wait until February 26th to see what that might look like?
Yes, I don't think we have the elevations this evening, so it would be at that meeting.
They'll bring that and flyovers, that type of thing, at the February 26th meeting.
Okay, I'd be very interested because here's my opinion. 800,000, I'd rather go out and I would go use my connections in the Silicon Valley grant world to find that 800,000. I'd rather go with the what's the second, the Park Lantern, because I'm worried when I saw what looked like the back of the building from Lincoln Circle, it looks like a big flat wall. It looks like you're looking at the back of a building, and those people are going to have to look at it every day. So, and also because part of the lantern was, what's the right word? Sort of a give to the neighborhood that I live in, which is more traditional housing styles versus the more modern styles. The porch to me is like having a modern building smack dab in our Spanish Tudor neighborhood. So just to give you direction, that's where I'm coming from, and I'm happy to go look for the money. But I'd really like to see those drawings on the backside.
Councilwoman Pappen.
Thank you. Thank you for staff and everybody who's working towards this. Just informationally speaking here, the Measure II was 1/3 of the funding. We do have a third from developers and insurance, and also a third looking at surplus property. The message from the voters was that every single precinct in Millbrae came out over 70%. We just did not reach the 76.6%. One precinct did. Congratulations to the area around actually Schultz Park. Came in at like 78%. So that was quite interesting.
67. It's 67.
66.
Yeah,
but with the city voting well in every precinct came in over 70%. But we pulling this up here. The approval was sending the message that we want to see this happen again, recreating the recreation center to meet the current needs of the city, the current population, and to have a sustainable building. So with that message moving forward, we will be looking at possible grants from the state, grants from other public organizations, public-private partnerships, anything we can do, and as was proposed tonight, instructing staff to see what kind of funding can be obtained for the child care preschool element of this proposal to also bring down the costs as much as possible. So the staff is really looking for that message to be delivered, if possible, from this council. I would support it. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Councilman Oliva?
So I would support everything that Councilmember Pappen just said. With regards to that, finding the funding and coming up with some creative avenues, whether it be Councilmember Schneider coming up with $800,000 in grants and such. What would be the next stage with regards the cost of the next stage of like blueprints, so to speak? What would that cost?
So Group 4 has identified that schematic drawings would be about $450,000.
$450,000, and how long does that take to get in place?
I believe it was about 6 months, but I don't have that.
6 months for that?
Yeah.
And do they is there a time frame that we're held to them with a contract of any sort? Like, could we say in 6 months we want to do that, or do we have is that hanging on us heavy?
It would only be if we found some funding and needed to accelerate spending. I think, for example, the Prop 68 grant funds, there's plenty of time within the schedule that we have. They there may be, just like with construction escalation that will happen as we've had to delay the project, there may be escalation in their costs. That's typical in any contract. Consultants increase costs typically on an annual basis. So those are...
Any idea of a percentage to that?
It's typically around like the kind of cost of living, so around a 2 or 3%.
3%.
Yeah, that's typical. I haven't addressed it with them specifically.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mayor Halbert?
Sorry, are we giving direction now on the actual designs, or are we holding off until 26?
You can state your. I believe you can state your views.
Okay.
I think they're only looking. Sorry. I think they're only looking for guidance on the going out with the proposal for.
Yeah, our thought on the design is you'll get more information from Group 4. You'll see some more diagrams, some more drawings. So certainly we can take in the comments, and if there's information we can give to Group 4 to help that presentation, we'll be glad to do it. But we won't look for final direction tonight because I think there's more information that we can give to you. At the same time, we wanted to give you at least a teaser because your commissions and committees have seen this information already, and we want to get the full council caught up.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate staff keeping us and the public updated on what's going on. I'm in favor. We obviously the majority of the citizens approved this project. It's just that we didn't get the 2/3 vote required to pass the tax. So, and we came pretty close too. I think we're short like 160 votes or something like that.
380.
300. Okay, well, 380 votes. 380. Who's counting?
You know who you are.
Right. So I don't know. We've instructed our council to look into possible avenues of other methods of figuring out ways that we could make a difference. And I agree that I agree that we need that community room. And that community room needs to be built as part of the project. Otherwise, it's kind of it's just like a half baby sort of approach as I look at it. Okay, any other comments, questions?
I don't think we got guidance yet. Does everybody agree on the?
Yeah. Can I
I
see
support going out with looking for a partner for the
preschool?
preschool.
Okay, I think you got your consensus.
Okay. And on the second item, so that we can prepare Group 4 appropriately, in terms of moving forward, we will not be bringing forward a contract at this point for schematic drawings. Is there consensus on that item?
How can you do that if you haven't chosen whether it's community porch or lantern?
Well, the cost of the drawings is similar between the two options. So what we would be doing if you wanted to take a different staff recommendation is having them draft a contract to bring forward also at February 26th.
I would propose we wait till February 26th.
I would wait
That
too.
decision.
Yeah,
I think that'd be very easy to do.
things may change.
Okay. So we won't bring a contract at that time, but we can discuss it at that time. Is that the understanding?
How long is, I mean, the contract should be easy to prepare, is that correct?
I think they've probably done some work on it. I think that in the past they've been a little bit complex. We needed some time with city attorney, that type of thing, to assure we've got all the.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, and if the decision is made, and I think that this is going to be a very critical decision in terms of the fluid aspects of spending money versus us trying to find funds, we can certainly bring it back within 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so we're not going to, we won't lose any time.
Yeah, so I propose that we would just wait till that February 22nd meeting in 26, sorry, and then make that decision 2 weeks. I propose, not everybody.
I agree.
Okay. All right. So staff have enough information to move forward?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for everybody for working together on this. And thank you to our recreation commissioners and staff for your hard work. Okay, next item is the continuation of the January 8th study session on TOD 2, the Gateway at Millbrae Station project. This is a study session, so there is no action item. And how do we want to just address, I'll have staff report, and then maybe we should address some of the outstanding items that were brought up last meeting, and then I'm sure there's going to be additional questions.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Brad Meisner, Interim Community Development Director. And so I just have a few brief comments for you this evening, and I know Mr. Arardi from Republic Urban would like to address the Council as well. Tonight, this is a continuation of the study session from January 8th concerning the Gateway at Millbrae Station project. We talked a little bit about what the scope of the design review permit is last time, and that it's really an opportunity for the council and for the public to hear about the project design, including architecture and design elements, signage and monuments, open space, public art, building materials, and landscaping. And so this really is a dialogue for council to give feedback to staff as well as the project applicant on components of the project that you find satisfactory or components that you alternatively think need some continued work. Again, this was a development agreement that was approved back in April of this past year. The design review permit under the city's code really is intended to allow for findings of fact. And those findings of fact really need to be related to whether or not the architecture, building materials, colors, signage, landscaping are up to high quality standards that the city has set forth. With that said, the next steps for this project would be for this evening to continue with the study session. Once the study session has been finalized, again, there will be no vote this evening. Tonight is informational only. And then they would go back to the Planning Commission for a formal public hearing, as well as to City Council for a formal public hearing where a decision would be made along with those findings of fact that I discussed previously. With that, staff is recommending that the council conduct the study session for consideration of the design review permit previous to the formal public hearings that will come forth. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Rari from Republic Urban. I know he has some comments to make.
Thank you, Melissa. Good evening. Kelly Arardi, Republic Family of Companies, project executive for TOD number 2, Gateway Millbrae Center. I'd like to thank your staff for getting us to this session so quickly after the other session. I'd like to thank Mayor Lee for the way he conducted the previous meeting and how he moved things along and how we went through item by item to get through this design review. I think we made great progress. I'd like to thank the City Council for all your comments also. Our goal tonight is very similar to your staff's. We would like to hear the rest of your comments tonight. Then we're already incorporating the comments that you made in the previous meeting, the ones that we think we can do. We're already working on those for our resubmittal. We'd love to get Planning Commission City Council meetings for the final design review. And we've taken copious notes. And like I said, we're already working on the reasonable comments. A little bit about our schedule. Just so you know, after the prior approvals, we've started our improvement plans. We've started construction drawings for our site improvements. We've started construction drawings for some of our vertical construction. And we're looking at a groundbreaking, hopefully at the end of Q2 or sometime in Q3. We're very excited about that. Why'd we start? I mean, the reason we started is because of all the previous approvals that we've gotten. Specifically, the development agreement, as well as the site development plan. The site development plan, as you know, that you approved in February, approved square footages, number of units, building heights, shapes, and locations, and also confirmed the conformance to the specific plan. Your staff recommended approval and listed findings that you approved. Some of the findings, these are just a summary of some of the findings in the SDP that was very well written, very specific, and very concise. The first one is that the proposed development conforms to the overall intent of the Millbrae Station Area Specific Plan and will produce an environment of stable, desirable character and produce high-quality development with uses that contribute to the visual identity and environmental quality of the station area. Another little excerpt there. The project includes a mix of uses, including residential, retail, and office uses, which will allow people to live and work in proximity to public transit in an attractive environment that includes ground floor, open space, and retail businesses. Further, it says that the proposed development complies with all the goals, policies, objectives, and development standards and design guidelines for the Millbrae Station Area Specific Plan. A couple more items. These are just out of your staff's findings that they wrote for you that you voted for and approved. Project complies with all of the MSASP policies and design guidelines and standards, or there are conditions of approval that will ensure the project will comply. And finally, one of the staff findings was the 4 proposed buildings have complementary architecture, styles, materials, and colors are still unique in design while creating a cohesive project. Landscaping, signage, and other on-site amenities will be consistent throughout the project. That was voted for by 4 of you and then again signed by the mayor at that point. So that's where we are today, and I want to, we're very excited to be here for you for a design review. We're very happy to take your remaining comments. We have all our experts still here tonight, and with that being said, we're looking forward to your constructive comments and responding where we can and closing this up and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have, should we start with the what we left off on the monument? Or you want to?
No, I have some.
You want additional comments?
Yeah, I want additional comments.
Yeah, I know you want additional comments. Okay, so let me just try to do this in an orderly way. Last time we left on 2 things. I remember it was the landscape and the monument. Let's get those things out of the way first, if we may, before we add more items, because I think they're probably prepared to speak about that. Is your staff ready to speak about those issues?
You'd like to see our landscape architect is here, if you'd like to speak with them.
Was there any changes to the monument sign?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I think we should back up for a second here, because there's questions going around as to the designs previously advertised by the developer in 2014 and why there was a significant change in the current designs?
Okay, let's get to that. But let me.
Well, you're getting to the minutia before discussing the buildings.
Well, it's a related, but it's a separate topic that was a big item for the council, I believe. So to me, I mean, we're going to pick it by. I think we should pick it by, go item to item in terms of rather than.
I think the overall building design is the biggest issue here.
It is a big issue. I'm not disagreeing with you.
But if you're going to talk about monuments and landscaping before that, I think you get to that after we talk about building.
Councilwoman Schneider.
I have a couple of quickies that have to deal with monument and bike accessibility. I could go whichever direction you want, but maybe there's a couple of easy things we can give the developer before we tackle redesigning buildings.
I don't think any of this is easy. Let's start with monument, landscape, and get that out of the way, and then we'll go on to design. Okay.
Sure. On monument signs, I mean, we took a lot of notes, listened to your comments. We have some ideas. We're not fully baked with those ideas, and I can show you a few tonight if you'd like. But again, our goal is to take all your notes down and come back with you with more of a final product. But I'm happy to show a few signs
okay. If you don't like. If you don't have anything prepared for the monument.
Sure, we have a few, but again, this is a study session, like you said. We're not looking for an approval, but again, you had a lot of comments about monument signs. We took those in and we started working on it. So if you'd like to see where we are so far, I'm very happy to show it to you.
Okay, let's proceed, and then.
Okay. Do you know where that's at? Which one? Okay. We've got a lot of pages to this presentation. Melissa Durkin's going to help me. She's a project executive also. So you had talked about putting the old monument sign back where it was. And this is our preliminary take at doing that. It's not the final one. I mean, we didn't have a whole bunch of time to turn this around, but it's of a similar scale. It could be bigger if you want, but that's one option that we looked at that we got feedback from you. The next one is some of your staff made a comment, and our sign contractor and designer made a comment, and I'm sorry he can't be here tonight. He's in another country somewhere doing signs, so he. They got this stuff out. This sign you'll see is a rendition of a sign you already have in Millbrae. When you come in from San Bruno, I believe, that's another sign. What this does is it separates from the building, creates height, and is kind of consistent with an existing design that you folks do have. I've got some comments on the lettering, and I want to make, again, this is a study session, and some folks do not like the lettering how it's written now. They like it more like the lettering is on the Millbrae Theater sign, where it goes top to bottom instead of sidewards, I guess, if you would say. There's been some comments that that's difficult to read. We're open to the lettering either way, and again, this is a concept. These were just some signs that in the process of working on our mapping, we're looking at signs to name streets. I mean, East Station Road, South Station Road, Garden Lane are kind of old names, and we thought a couple signs that we propose on the mapping is one Avenue of the Peninsula, which is more of a retail-oriented sign where Garden Lane is now. Then, of course, on East Station Road, where all the shuttles and people come down to the BART station, Lou Papin is iconic's been used a lot around here, but he's a very iconic figure in the area and helped get BART to Millbrae, and our president thought that was a perfect name for East Station Road and a more meaningful one. So. Avenue of the Peninsula and Lou Papin Way. Signage also. We heard some comments about the sign on the western portion of the residential building that, for several reasons, one may be wind loads, one may be just how it looked, that we should bring it down below the parapet and make it look more secure.
What's a parapet? Sorry.
The parapet is the metal, vertical metal above the roof line. It covers air conditioning equipment and things like that, but things sitting on the roof,
It's
so
like a
when you
false
drive
wall.
by, you can't.
It's a false wall, basically.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
Facade.
I didn't know.
Correct. So, and again, there was some concern about structural integrity of signs. I think the look a little bit too, and so we changed it. That is another rendition of more of a vertical sign. And again, these are all works in progress. That's why, again, what our goal here is to get through all your comments. We're taking a bunch of notes and then submit our final package to Planning Commission for their review and approval, and then have them send it to you. But that's another one. There's another one. So our sign guy really liked the idea of going vertical and separating the sign a little bit from our project. So there's our project, and then there's Millbrae. You're coming into Millbrae. He had some concerns even about putting the Millbrae sign on our marquee sign, that it might imply that our project, you're entering the city of Millbrae, as opposed to a separate sign that identifies the city as a whole. Another one? Very similar. That's it. That's where we are now. And if you love one now, give us a feedback. If you want to tweak a little bit more, we'll take it back and keep working on it. But it's kind of a fun project. It's creative and artistic, and everybody has an opinion. So I hope that answers your questions on where we are on signs.
Anybody? Any comments? Councilman Schneider.
This isn't a monument sign. The feedback that I received from Millbrae's Bike Pedestrian Committee was the signage you wanted to put on the median strip on Rollins Road. They were very concerned that that would be distracting, and pedestrians, it would increase the possibility of pedestrian bicycle car accidents. So that it just seemed like there was an awful lot going on in there. I think that you were intending to also create some visibility so a pedestrian crossing the street would see a car coming. But if you're also looking at the signs of where you're going to go, boom, boom.
I'm going to have our landscape architect address spacing, lane sizes, visibility. That's more his.
And that's not monument signage, but that's the one.
That's a gantry sign coming in on Rollins Road you're talking about. Is that correct?
The median strip. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. That's why you're up here.
Yeah, you got it. Good evening. I'm Brian Glick. The median barrier, I thought was a really great staff suggestion back when you're doing our site development permit. Our goal or the intent of that is to function as a barrier to really dissuade pedestrians from crossing mid-block. We feel that's really safety oriented. We saw that as an opportunity to then add art, since our project is just so rich from art. So the goal of that sign isn't to completely obstruct. In fact, there won't be any planting in that segment of the median, so there won't be any understory. It's a metal frame with the art attached. You see really through it in most of it. Go ahead.
And I'm not sure that translated. We have someone from the Millbrae's Bike Pedestrian here, and he's one of the ones that brought up the concern. I saw it as art. They saw it as signage, directional signage saying, this shop, that shop. And whereas one could be, you can look at it at a glance and enjoy. Another is if you're reading and you get distracted. So maybe that was part of a miscommunication there.
Yeah, hopefully I've clarified that. The art components that are on there would be of a reflective of the sign material, but not necessarily in a wayfinding manner to direct folks to where they would be going or what was there. We've been discussing and proposing that some of that has a historical connection to the richness of Millbrae itself.
Vice Mayor Halder.
Have there been any amendments to that aspect of the project since the last meeting?
That's a great question. I've done a study of the grade change along that median barrier and exactly how that decorative art fence would look. I think what we're really talking about on my end is a support structure that provides the physical barrier and a means to which the artist sees fit as we hire them and commission them to add the art to it, and is really allowing that as the canvas, so to say, for the art. So we really think that the artist, super talented, is going to add their art to this support structure that my landscape team would propose and detail.
Okay. I don't know what the direction from the council is. I personally raised some concerns about the design of that median barrier as well as the vertical art screen, which is a very similar design. I don't know if that's just a matter of taste or what, but in my personal opinion, I think it's a bit confusing and not particularly elegant in that location. And I would prefer, in my opinion, to have either a different type of art there that's blends in a little bit more with the landscape, or find a different opportunity to use that art within the project. And I don't know if that's something that the council wants to discuss or not.
I agree with you on those elements of it. I had issues as well. If we're getting down to the specifics on that.
I know it's minutia at this point, but
well, I mean,
came up, so.
Can I, Mr. Mayor? I mean, this is design review here. It's a discretionary aspect of, if I understand this correctly, this is what we're supposed to be commenting on. Okay, so yeah, we're supposed to be discussing the minutia as well as the design here. And I was asking staff earlier to hopefully get the entire council clarification on what exactly we're doing here. I do greatly appreciate all the work on the monuments stuff, and absolutely please, no Loop Happen Road. But the signs are looking great. But this is what we're supposed to be talking about here. And I have similar issues with what Vice Mayor Holliper also said. So, yeah, I mean, we're supposed to be giving direction here. I agree with you. I don't like that as well. So I don't know where it goes at this point in time. So, I mean, this is public comment for us to discuss. Yeah. We shouldn't be making excuses.
Councilwoman Oliva.
So the way I'm understanding this, Councilmember Pappen, is that, yes, you're 100% right, this design review, but it's to give our opinions and so that they could come back with
right.
any.
And I think Vice Mayor Holliber was saying that he gave those opinions and hasn't seen the response.
Well, they're not bringing the responses back tonight. They're bringing them back.
No.
I'm sorry. Did I misunderstand something? No, I think we are on the same page here.
Well, I think that in my experience as the planning commissioner, developers and staff appreciate some guidance and some, even though they know that each five of us can have different opinions, it would really help them if they can hear our opinions so they could somehow meld, put something together that they could present. Otherwise, they're just kind of reaching in the air.
So aside from safety, as long as, to me, make sure that it's safe, number one requirement. If you look at our frontage road along El Camino Real and Hillcrest South, we've got that same kind of barrier. It's a green metal sculpture, as it were. And I think we can have some amazing art. I would just encourage you to maybe not make it so distracting that it might distract a driver or a walker. But I am perfectly comfortable with some form of art in there. I happen to love wrought iron. My family used to have a wrought iron business in the city. You can do amazing things with metal. And it is a piece of San Francisco history, too, with that. So go look at Folsom Street Ironworks. That was my family's business up on 16th and Folsom. And it was Art Deco. But hence why I like Art Deco. But I think we can get something in there. I appreciate what our Park and Rec said, that we want to make sure that people cross the street safely. And I tried to explain that it really wasn't there for art. It was there to keep people from mid-block walking, which is a problem we have on El Camino. So we're going to have something there. Plants can die. A solid barrier is much better at keeping people from mid-block crossing. So I support it. Just come back with some art ideas, some less distracting, perhaps.
Thank you. Our public art artists are both here tonight. They're listening and could comment further. Councilperson Holliber, is there a specific thing you might want to see there, or am I hearing you just don't want anything there? Again, I'm just asking this so when we come back, we head in the exact correct direction. And if the answer is,
I don't really know. I just am not particularly fond of what's been presented here.
Perhaps simplify it?
Maybe a bit more simplified, yeah.
I have an alternative suggestion or recommendation. We don't really need 2 city monument signs on each side. I think one's sufficient. Most cities just have one. I'm suggesting you put something that softens that corner, maybe a water feature. It's good feng shui. It makes it more relaxing. It's more appealing.
You're in a wind.
I think we're talking about 2 different things. And so if there's a site plan that we can show and actually put some context to what we're talking about, one is...
We're talking about that corner, right?
Well, we're talking about 2 different things popped up. So one was a monument sign and one was the pedestrian barrier that I think has some different color to it that
okay.
I think was
beyond me. All right.
Sometimes simple is better, or sometimes landscaping. But this is the objective tonight in these study sessions is to get some of that detail and get consensus so we can go back. And so if the art isn't what the council desires, then that's fine, and we need to know that. I think the applicant needs to know that. And then I think if the objective under section 10.05.2500 needs to be further explained, we'd be happy to do that as well in terms of the discretion that the city council as decision makers on this architectural site development plan have under our municipal code. So we really would like to get into.
Okay, let me finish up. So I guess I'm the only one talking about the monument sign. So we're not talking about the monument sign anymore, right?
No, I think the work on the monument sign was good.
Okay.
So we're going down the right direction of the monument sign. Yeah. Then it moved into the barrier along Rollins Road to separate so people wouldn't jaywalk and cross.
So we decided we like the Millbrae monument sign?
Right. This is what we were not
That's the median.
thrilled with.
That's the median.
So the median, I think we decided that we would like it less busy, with less busy art, so it doesn't distract walkers or bikers. The monument side is what you just brought up.
Okay.
Monument sign, I would agree with you that it's maybe not necessary to have 2 sides of the monument saying Millbrae is so greatly.
Well,
I think as a council we might want to think about is we did go through signage and we rebranded a lot of signs in the city and they actually picked up on it. Do we want to continue that down to the development and have continuity throughout the city? Or do we want to have something like the mayor proposed with the fountain or water feature?
Councilwoman Pappen?
I'm not against what the mayor's suggesting here, but I disagree. I do think the monument idea here is that you're entering the city of Millbrae besides entering the project here. So a balance on both sides of the street, I think, is important. And I greatly appreciate all the work the developer has done with providing options here. I don't think the signage that we've come up with throughout El Camino is the appropriate thing to pick up on here, but he's got other ideas there, but I think it's really important that we have both sides of the street there because it's the entryway into the city as well. And I think that's exceptionally important. And whether, water feature would be nice, but you're in a wind tunnel too, so I don't know if that's going to go over well.
I agree with Ms. Pappen. I like the signs on both sides. I appreciate that you brought in a little bit of Spanish because that's my love. The only concern I have with anything more vertical is, again, back to where we put the Lions, Rotarians, Girl Scouts, Boy Scout insignias. If you just, when you come back to us, consider them. And I like the idea of a water feature. If that corner business is the microbrewery that I'm desperately dreaming of, and we have some good weather. We had actually a lovely yesterday and a lovely today, a little chilly, but not windy. There could be a chance to appreciate that. So I'd be interested to see what a water feature might look like.
One comment on the signs, just can find them again. Keep going. Okay, for example, this vertical sign, I actually asked our sign people to put some city emblems down below Millbrae. I think there's room for it. You can see in the lower area, you could put it on top or on the bottom. It would accommodate that. So again, it's a work in progress, but we did hear you about that.
Vice Mayor Holder.
Yeah, I think a lot of progress has been made on the signs, and I think there's been great improvement. I don't think I'm ready at this time to pick one preferred design or another, but I do like the idea of a water feature. I think maybe in the central plaza by the entrance to the BART station might be a good location for a potential water feature. I know the preliminary designs that we just received for TOD 1 include a water feature kind of in the public Paseo area. So I think that could work well there as well.
Councilwoman Lee, did you have a question?
No, I would agree with everything that's being said. I like continuity, and I would be fine with either way that we were presented. I like the water feature too. I think that it has good feng shui into the city.
Great. So can we move on to landscape then?
I think, though, if we could get clarification on this art aspect here, the original proposal that we...
Are you talking about the art aspect?
The divine, well, it was the one...
The median strip.
Yeah, the median.
For the one on Millbrae Avenue?
No. Right, I think...
Rollins Road.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So that wasn't doing it for me either, and there are different examples in the original, I don't know, what are we calling these things?
2014. Oh, the
2000. They're dated.
They're dated.
6/24/2016.
I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of different things I would ask Councilmember Holliber and several others to look at that were put in earlier.
Well, what are you looking at that you like?
Oh, even something like you've got sculptured seating here. You've got an interactive art installation, that kind of stuff.
For the median strip?
I just didn't like the wall here. You're proposing alternatives. I'm not saying that you have to pick one. I agree with Mr. Holliber. I didn't think that was doing it here.
Well, I think
it also says that this could be a digital wall screen.
It's the art pieces on the wall that we're looking for, not for the structure.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm not a fan of either. So I'm just I'm pointing out alternatives here. You've got in that.
Okay, let's,
Mayor Lee, may I make a comment, ask a question of the council, please? So maybe to help the discussion, maybe to help the design team get some direction, we can look at that median barrier, that fence, and we can start talking about whether it's wrought iron or tubular steel. We can love a recommendation if you think a natural material like wood or a composite wood, colors, subtle. If you start directing me in this way, I should be able to, definitely come back for the final presentation using your direction and show you something that I think you'll be really excited with. Thank you.
On this topic, Mayor Pietro has a question, I believe. Can you come up to the mic, ma'am?
Thank you. Excuse me. For the sake of the people in the audience, we don't have a clue of what you're talking about because there is nothing about what you're talking about in these PowerPoint presentations.
And we're sitting there and flipping through all these pages, and we don't know what you see and why you're talking about it and commenting about it the way you are.
Thank you.
So I would like to make a suggestion that a PowerPoint be prepared of what you folks have in front of you, so that we could at least have a vision of it in front of us in the audience. Because I'm trying to figure out, well, what page are they on, or what is this and what is that, and we just don't see it. So for future, if we could please have the PowerPoint match what you're talking about, so that while you hold up your big long pieces of paper and talk about your stuff, that we be able to do that and see it as well.
Thank you for your suggestion.
I think that would be
that.
better transparency, better comprehension, and have a sense of knowing what it is, not just something that you're talking about.
Great suggestion. Let's do that.
Thank you very much.
And then the other thing, too, is we have other people who have English challenge. Is there anybody who needs interpretation of what's going on in these proceedings? Don't feel shy to raise your hand, and we have a Chinese interpreter here. Okay, and Dr. DeNegro, did you have a comment too?
Just a little summary on Ms. Colapietro's comment. I mean, when we come back to you with the formal application, we'll make sure we have the appropriate PowerPoints and be able to distribute to everybody. Again, now we're just kind of.
We're working on it too. We can do better ourselves. Thank you.
So our BPAC's concern was the height of the wall. The fact that you cannot see over it in the design picture from a standard car window concerns us. This wall should not be higher than a car door for a standard car, because of visibility of pedestrians coming to and from, and also bicycle traffic coming up and down Millbrae. That was one concern. The second one is no wording. Anything that's going to make a person turn to the wall to read something is a bad idea from bike and pedestrian safety. Those are our two concerns. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, so do you have enough direction for that? Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so we're moving on. Are we doing landscape or are we doing design? Councilwoman Pappen has some suggestions or concerns about some overall design. You want to do landscape, finish the landscape? Do you have comments? Okay, please. Who has comments?
Two comments. I don't remember if you stayed around at the end of the meeting 2 weeks ago, but Chevron Gas Station also came through with their plans, and there's that strip that's an opportunity for a bioswale. That's how I look at it. And oleander. I'm not sure if your hotel wants to look at it, oleander. So I just want to make sure that you're working with them. I think that's what I saw you guys doing at the end of the meeting 2 weeks ago. And they seemed somewhat open to working with you. So hopefully that will go on. Landscaping, as I said, community enhancement looked at the plants and we're pretty much okay with the plants. I'm just always worried that they always look great and fresh the first 2 years, and then they don't look very good. But you're going to have on-site management. The plants are going to be maintained. The trees that are in the existing parking lot, have you considered taking them out rather than killing them and maybe giving them to the community? We are very shy on trees here, and most demolition or most deconstruction permits would require and include that as an aspect of the deconstruction contract. You don't have much to deconstruct here. It's all asphalt. But I'd love to see some kind of plan for reuse of those trees, not necessarily on site, but somewhere else. And really curious. I attend a lot of meetings down at Gilead in Foster City, and they've done some pretty amazing bioswales with a great collection of plants in there. So I haven't looked into detail enough, but maybe give us a better idea when you come back with the plans of what might be in the bioswales, because they can be pretty exciting. Gileads are just lovely.
Yeah, I can.
And I don't know what a Gilead is, so we need to see these things when we're talking about them, as former Mayor Colapietro said.
I have lots of pictures. Gilead is a biotech firm, Foster City, major company in Foster City, but they've done all of their buildings have bioswales, and they're very well landscaped, and they're very lush.
Thank you for your comments. You got it.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like a 5-minute break to discuss something with staff here.
Okay, sounds like a good idea. It's fine.
Thank you.
Right, please.
Mr. Williams, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Yeah. 5 minutes break. Can you pee in 5 minutes?
Dave.
Okay, thank you. We're back. So, where are we? Oh, yeah. So, staff has some clarification for us about the process.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There's been some questions relative to, under the municipal code, what this discretionary permit allows and what is the purview of the city council in terms of reviewing and ultimately approving the architectural permit. And so I'd like to introduce Mr. Brad Meisner to go into some detail and again provide more clarity to the city council as to exactly what you're allowed to do in terms of a design review permit, which is a discretionary permit, and it gives you extensive authority.
Thank you, City Manager. Council, so I apologize. Let me back up a little bit. One, for your report this evening, I did have some language in there that kind of was meant to help set the context of what this development review permit is about. And so I'll go into a little bit more detail. While tonight is a study session, and we know what it is, we're intended to give design feedback to the project applicant as well as staff. Let's talk about where we're actually heading. And where we're actually heading at some point is a vote on a development review permit. It is the permit type within the city's municipal code that gives the council and planning commission great latitude to look at the aspects of design. And so I have pointed out what the municipal code is by reference, but I think I'll talk to you about it in a little bit more detail. So when we bring back the formal hearing, we'll have a much more detailed staff report that will get very deep into the weeds on all components of the elevations of the building materials, the signage. We'll call out all the details. Tonight it was meant to be more general, but when we come forward with a formal review, you will have an itemized list of every component of the project with a full staff report and ultimately a set of findings that the Planning Commission and the City Council would need to make. All four findings would need to be made in the affirmative if they were to approve the project. And so I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about that right now. What those findings are, and I'm going to read them verbatim, is that the project for approval, that the architecture, landscaping, and general appearance of the proposed building or structure and grounds are in keeping with the character of the neighborhoods. That's one of the first findings that the council would need to make. The second is that the project would comply with all applicable development regulations, including our general plan and the specific plan. C, that the project complies with the intent of the adopted design review guidelines, including a finding that the project will not cause a significant visual impact to neighboring views from principal rooms of a residence unless it's proven by the applicant that there's no other viable or cost-effective alternative. And last but not least, that the proposal is not detrimental to the orderly, harmonious, and safe development of the city and will not impair the desirability of investment or occupation in the neighborhood in which the building or structure is proposed to be erected. So those four findings are very important, and they, again, all need to be made in the affirmative. So what does that really mean? At the end of the day, what that means is through this design review permit, you have great latitude to look at the building design, the colors, the materials, the landscaping, signage, all those types of things are within your purview to make suggestions of whether or not you think it's appropriate, whether you don't think it's appropriate, whether you want specific changes. What cannot be changed really is the building heights, the number of units, the mix of retail, all those things that were a part and parcel of the development agreement and site permit, those are set in stone. But the design, whether it's a style preference that you have or a material preference or the rhythm of windows, the types of windows, the recess on windows, those are all before you. And again, I think some of the awkwardness in what we're having this evening is because it's a study session, you don't have all the details before you. We don't have a staff report that's telling you what the depth of windows are, what the window types are. That's all within the drawings, and so it's a little bit incumbent upon you all to take a look at that, but we will have much more detail when we move forward. So I hope that's helpful, and that is really what the legal purview of the council is.
So tonight, I think you're looking for an overall feeling of what we're looking for, not particular details, but more like an overall feeling of what we're looking for, like design. My question, I'll be in a second, Councilman Pappen. My question is that first item, I mean, there is no neighborhood near there, so
Right.
obviously we can't design to that neighborhood. And sometimes, even if it is a neighborhood nearby, sometimes the planning commission or city had decided that we're going to a different direction. So, so I'm not sure the first one is really that relevant.
Well, you will have to make that finding, and I understand that that's going to be somewhat of a challenge. And you make a great point, Mayor, because, sometimes you will want to have a development that is very much in keeping with the exact style of a neighborhood because it's safe and secure, and it has tried and true design principles that are very attractive to the community. Sometimes you may have something that you want to be separate and apart for a variety of reasons. And so we can talk about what some of those variables are when we get to making the actual findings during the approval. But that is a fantastic point. Here you have an area of the city that's near our intermodal station that is transitioning from the freeway into the city. It's new. It was part of the redevelopment area of the city that was previously identified in the general plan. So it was always envisioned that there would be some turnover in what the architectural style would be like anyhow. So that's a great point.
Councilman Pappen.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
Yes.
Now, as to the design here, and I agree with former Mayor Colapietro here, we need to see, the public needs to see too, and to give us perspective here, a picture of the station, a picture of surrounding architecture here as to how it fits in. The style currently proposed, I have grave issues with, and I want to get this done. I want to get the developer so they can do their thing here. What was advertised by the developer in 2014 is, by my view, and I think several other people, is more palatable and more consistent with the existing station area. Can we bring that up? Do you have pictures of number one? I mean, even if we have to have blow-ups here of the station as it exists now, that is the iconic structure. And then what was advertised by the developer in 2014, I think, is something we should look at.
So, Mayor, we have some of those 2014 renderings or concepts that we'll bring up. Now, this was also sent to the council in an email because there were some questions raised as to, what was that. And then we also have pictures of the BART station. We have pictures of the, actually of the airport hotel to look at kind of the modern aspects of what is happening. So.
Now, to me, these are more consistent with the structure that exists there now and more comparable in design. So what happened between 2014 and now is of interest.
Brad, Kelly, hold on before the applicant gets up. Brad, if you can just go ahead and go through the photos and scroll through those so we get an idea.
All right, and I can also read the captions as well so that people in the audience can understand. The first says view from Millbrae BART platform looking southeast into ground floor commercial. And then...
Are you talking about the top photograph?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, you can bring it down a little.
And City Manager, you sent these to us as an attachment today or yesterday? They're not on the website for the public to watch along?
No, they're not. It was just an email from me to the City Council for it.
But we can get these up on the website?
Yes, we certainly can.
This is it.
Thank you.
Okay, at the top says the following are a series of urban design and architectural images proposed for TOD2 back in 2014, as well as example from other TOD designs from other cities. So I'll let the project applicant speak to it. The first was a view from Milpitas BART platform looking southeast into the ground floor.
Millbrae.
Wow, excuse me. View from the Millbrae BART platform looking southeast in the ground floor, commercial 2014 image. The second was looking west to BART station entrance, looking down from the proposed promenade. Third image was a view looking west down Garden Lane at intersection of Rollins Road, the hotel on the left, affordable housing on the right, and then an architectural rendering. A view of the actual BART station. And then looking northwest towards the parking lot. And then this is just an image of the Westin Hotel nearby. The last one, I think, is a view of the Grand Hyatt at SFO under construction. Same thing on the bottom. And then just other examples of projects in other cities. Top was downtown Portland. Bottom is Jersey City. Kirkland, Washington on the top. A TOD project in Belgium. And other examples. Would you like me to continue?
No, I think that's good.
You just follow with what Mr. Meisner said. From a design review standpoint, first things first, the project that's before you is an evolution of 6 or 7 years of work with the city. As a matter of fact, in 2016, by 2016, we probably had 30 public meetings or work sessions with the community, all groups that wanted to meet with us, and we got their input. We got Planning Commission, City Council, veterans groups, citizens groups, and the plans evolved. They evolved to a point where you were able to design a specific plan, which we worked on very closely, and the specific plan is very detailed as to what is supposed to happen in the project. In 2014, you didn't even have a specific plan. By 2016, you had a specific plan after a lot of public input that helped shape the design of the project. In October 2016, we submitted a plan that was going to come to you, and your staff wouldn't support it because they didn't think it met some of the intent of the specific plan, and the buildings weren't in the right place. And we made a decision at that time to take a pause and really take a hard look at the specific plan and what we're bringing in. And when we did that, we stopped. One of the comments was the project wasn't cohesive, the architecture didn't match, and we hired a master architect, and that's Chek Tang, who helped pull all this together, who designed the buildings, made sure they all blended with each other, yet complemented each other. And then we changed the site plan to meet your staff's requirements of where they wanted affordable and where they wanted the hotel. As we did this, step by step, we met with your staff, showed them what we were doing, got a thumbs up every step of the way. When we presented this project at the SDP in 2018, again, I showed you the, Mr. Meisner talks about findings and what you have to do. What he read to you, I think if you look in the findings for the SDP, you'll find all that language and more. And again, like I've repeated over and over, we conform to the specific plan almost line by line. Chek can get up here and walk you through the project. But to reference, projects in an article or some concepts from 2014 is nice, but we're here today and you already approved the sizes, the shapes, at a very specific level of detail. I know we're in design review, but we have a site development plan approved, we have a DA in place, we have a tentative map in place, all that reflect the plan that's before you tonight. And again, from a standpoint, if you want more detail on the architecture, colors, how far a window pops out, I think that's all fair play. But for you to come back and imply you're going to change the shapes of the building, I got to be very straight and upfront with you. We're not going to do it. I mean, we'll bring the same shape to you. We'll look at the type of architecture, colors, those sort of things. But I think we got to look at this in context. And if the amount of years it's been, the amount of meetings we've had, the amount of input we've had, more detail, fine, we're happy to do that. Check and stand up here and walk you through the project and how we comply everywhere. And again, like I said before, we're up to listen to your comments on the details of the project, and we'll do as much of that as we can. But if we're going to start changing shapes, we've got big problems.
So just to clarify, Mayor, because there seems to be confusion. So under the municipal code, in terms of changing site design and the building envelope, you can't change. But in terms of minor shapes and architectural design and all that, you do have the purview. And I'll look to our city attorney to correct me if I'm wrong on that. So I don't want any confusion from the applicant that you do have the opportunity afforded to you, if you so choose, to make a very significant degree of architectural change. If you don't like modern architecture and you want Italianate architecture, you have the right to do that.
But you already said you liked what we submitted. That's my point.
No, I'm sorry.
No. Hey, guys, hang on a second.
I just don't want the city council to be. I want you to know what is in front of you, not necessarily what the applicant says. With all due respect to the applicant, I think there's just a lot of confusion. And again, under this discretionary permit, your authority is broad and it can go deep if you choose to do that. And I'll look to city attorney to correct me if I'm wrong.
So the things that are fixed are really the
site design and
site
building
design,
envelopes, number of units.
Yeah, the envelope. So you can't move this building back or put that one over there. The color of the building, whether it's wood or stucco or glass, I think those are areas where you have discretion. So it's sort of within that age. Shape seems a little bit of a distracting term. You can't move the buildings around.
We're not moving buildings.
Yeah, it's just a question of if you like a particular surface or color or window or
roof line.
Those things are up for debate.
But footprint cannot be changed or can be changed.
It can be tweaked a little bit if it's if it's a functional change to achieve an architectural design. So, for example, if you don't like, if you want the corner of the building changed instead of square to be curved, rounded and curved, then yeah, there can be changes like that, but not a significant change. You can't take square footage away or reduce the number of units or the building envelope height or anything like that. So I just want to make
Mayor.
sure that.
Yes, Councilman.
Okay, thank you for all that. And we understand the evolution here is what we're talking about here. We are not changing the number of units. We're not changing the footprint. We're not changing any of that. We are talking, and we have never, ever approved the architecture as presented here. The picture came up as was advertised by Urban Republic in 2014, and I asked for the picture of the station area because the 2014 concept or design series is more comparable to the existing iconic building, which is the station as it exists now. I respect Mr. Chang here in that the buildings he's presenting as a development, they are in the same design format here, but I don't think the design format that's being presented is complementary to the existing station, complementary to even the Chase Bank across the street. I think that what is presented here is it looks boxy, and if you bring it up compared to what this developer advertised in 2014, I think we can do better here. And as far as the look and appearance, which is in our discretion. Yes.
Councilwoman Oliva.
With all due respect, Councilmember Pappen, I'm hearing you loud and clear, but I haven't heard anything to resolve what you're looking for, because I don't hear anything that you're giving to promote what you want.
I am. I'm looking at what I would like to see is comparable to the 2014 design
What does
advertised.
comparable mean? I mean, be specific.
Okay, these buildings, if you want to bring it up again, let's look again here. You've got the station.
It's further up, right?
Are you thinking mainly the street looking up Garden Lane?
I'm thinking of all these designs, the buildings themselves.
So what I'm seeing and hearing,
Stop right there.
what I'm seeing and hearing is you looking at pictures and then you're looking at specific areas, and we have an architect that does this every day, all day, and took everything, all of this, and put it together and melted it for us to make it look.
He's melted it
to make it look like a project complete. But to take this piece and then take the piece of the BART station makes no sense to me whatsoever. None. I think what you're looking at is a feeling and a style, and I think that we found that style in what was presented to us.
And
if you could be specific, because I see buildings, I see sidewalks, I see landscape, I see a walkway.
I will be very specific. The designs here, the building in the back, has what's that rooftop there? It's not just a plain wall here with windows slapped on the side, like is being proposed now.
Okay, you have to
the building.
You have to be respectful to the architect. He didn't slap anything on the side. That's not fair. I don't want to have that in the paper tomorrow morning, please.
By the way, my last name is Tang. Just
Tang? I'm sorry, I
misheard
misheard it. Excuse me, Mr.
I would
Tang.
appreciate the right name. Yeah.
My apologies.
Okay. Hang on.
So Ms. Oliva wants me to be specific here. The glass, the lines there, more enhance the existing station than what is proposed here.
The what glass?
Right here.
You're talking about the right side of the.
Right, I'm talking about all those buildings in that rendering. I find much more comparable to the existing station than what is currently proposed. What is currently proposed, with all respect to Mr. Tang, does not complement the one iconic building, which is the stationary. Can we get like a split screen?
I would
show
100%
the station.
disagree with you, Councilmember Pappen.
Okay, hang on. Let's have Vice Mayor Holliber weigh in.
Looking at this.
While we have this slide up, looking at the building in the back to the left, I think that was the residential building. I believe that's what Mr. Arardi was referring to as our staff's recommendation of the buildings being incongruous with each other. That building in the back left does not fit very well with the office building across from it, whereas I think with the designs that have been proposed now, they fit together better. Do they necessarily match the station itself? I don't know. I'm not going to make that argument. But I think they're more complementary today than they were in this image.
If I may add also, we're trying to listen to all your comments, and I think the comments from the last meeting was actually very constructive. We're working on it. But part of our listening process is listening to staff, listening to the planning consultants that you have on board on 5 or 6 pages of design comments. But most importantly, we literally read every letter out of the specific plan. And on the specific plan on section 6.8, this is from what we see from the design team's point of view, the vision of the city that you are representative of, which has been adapted. And we don't arbitrarily come up with design guideline because Kelly likes a design, I like the design, or Mayor likes a certain design. We have to comply. Staff and us have a common language that we're working off, hopefully, with you all, is this specific plan. And the specific plan is in section 6.8 is relating to architectural character. This is what it says. Contemporary and innovative design styles are encouraged, provided the design include human scale, proportion, engaging pedestrian-oriented ground floor features. That's exactly what we did. The other thing that I want to say is since that 2014, 2016 design, the reason why staff went against the design was a whole host of different design issues that came upon the project. Architecture is not just pasting a facade on the building. Architecture is established in your specific plan. Solar orientation. We changed the solar orientation of all the open spaces so they're not a donut hole, that there's no sunlight into the. We've created a more windproof design where the building essentially becomes a windshield to the northwest wind coming in and exposing the courtyard on the south side. We created massing changes to allow for the natural changes in the massing to create that natural architecture. Otherwise, you're basically pasting pieces of facade onto a big box. That's what happened in the 2014 design that you see here, in addition to the architecture. The other thing that I want to also highlight is public spaces. The interface between the public realm, the open spaces, along with the entry of the buildings, the retail, the servicing, the loading, is all in here, in your plan, in your vision. We have been faithfully, our team has been faithfully applying your vision, your design guideline, recommendations to us, and we have been faithfully executing what you have put in front of us. And so if you have not, I would implore you to read this line by line, because we did, staff did, their planning consultants did. If you look at this list, I won't go through every one of this, it's almost like a checklist of our design, literally. And by the way, I want to come back to say that our intent, and I really want to be saying that we want to do this in a constructive way, right? And I think we have had, all of us, been very cooperative, collaborative in listening and really gauging your concepts about signage, about landscape, about public arts, architecture. Absolutely. We are in the process of changing up the color palettes, as you mentioned. There are some corner elements, I think, on the hotel and also the affordable housing project that the diamond shapes that we're working on. The coloration of the building, we wanted to be bolder and maybe even articulating some of the materials in different places. And we heard also comments that the top of the building might be a little bit diminished, that we need to kind of create a little bit more oomph to create a more subtle top to the building. All of those things, small and large, we're listening to the constructive comments. But the overall, the kind of overriding design comments, I really want to, it's not a debate, it's not an arbitrary thing, it's not a discretionary thing where it's completely open forum. We have a guideline, we all have a guideline to live by. And I just want to remind, because it's 7 years in the process, we came in about a third of the ways in, it's important that we all understand what the expectations are, right? So I just want to, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit emotional because this is our baby. And I've been challenged. This has got to be a really landmark TOD project. I believe this is a landmark TOD project. And I stand here with my reputation after doing multiple TOD projects. I believe this is a landmark project. And if the comments comes back and makes the design better, we're all for it. But I think I just want to set that expectation so that our team is being treated in a fair and equitable and a process. We're going through a process. I want to respect the due process, and we are respecting the due process. And so I would leave it at that. I think that we're proud of the design, but we're not afraid to make changes to the design if it's a constructive one, and if it's a reasonable one, and if it's something that is complying with this. I can't just put a Mediterranean building up here because it's against this. This is your vision.
This is...
Okay, let me
Mr. Mayor, if I just add something.
One quick comment, Mr. Mayor.
No.
Well, I just want to say that some of the confusion may be, for example, these are complex projects. This is the biggest project that Millbrae's ever had in front of it. So it isn't easy for anybody. And these are really important decisions that you're making, the Planning Commission is going to make. You hear from the community. And I just think sometimes there's some confusion relative to, say this photo, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is the hotel, and there's now a pedestrian overcrossing over that street. And then so it is reflective of that is not now what they're proposing. If you think that is a more elegant design and you want to see that, it's within your discretion to say, we want something more like that. We want to forego the pedestrian overcrossing on the second floor. We'd like to, where is that ground floor retail, on the north side of Garden Lane? Is it still existing? And if that's a concern, what does that look like? And ask for some of the details of what that would feel like at that pedestrian level. Yeah. And if that's helpful, you have the ability, you have the right and I think obligation to do that. And I think that, sorry, just a minute. So I think I hear the frustration from you, and not just your project, but other developers, in dealing with our staff in the past. And we've been having a lot of changeover in staff, and then each staff had a different idea and said, this is what the city wants. And then the next thing you know, the next staff person says, oh, this is what the city wants.
I'm not complaining about your staff.
No, I know you're not complaining about the staff. But my point is that, sometimes maybe staff could have approached the commissioners or the council and getting their ideas and to give staff a more guidance on how these projects, where they want to see these projects go and design and look and feel and that sort of thing. So, and I feel the frustration on the developer's part is that, wait, you told me this is what you want. And now you're telling me, council members and commissioners, you're telling me something different. So I know the frustration. So I think as a city, we need to start looking at that process, see how we can take out the frustration, because it's not good reputation for Millbrae when developers come in and then they get 5 different views of how things are happening, and then they come to the Planning Commission or City Council, and then they get a totally different view, which is, I can see it's very frustrating.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The point I want to make is that this is a study session, and it's clear that you understand what we believe we can and can't do, and there are things that we're never going to satisfy everybody. A great board member at BART once said, he's in the business of approving the possible, not the perfect. And I've never got a perfect project approved, but this one is possible. It's well designed. We've got a great design team, and there's things that we told you we can't do, and there's things that we told you we will do, and we'll consider, and we're open. But we got a very expert team here. It's been through a very logical, professional, collaborative process to this point. I mean, your staff did a great job. I mean, they pushed back a lot. You hired experts in this industry to guide this project to where it is. These, Mr. Williams, Mr. Brad Meisner, Harry Burrows, those folks have done a lot of projects, and they're your guardian, and I understand that. But there's only so far we can go, and the way we feel. What I'd like to do is get the rest of the constructive comments out tonight. Let's wrap it up. We'll do what we can do and bring it to Planning Commission, City Council.
Okay, so my comments is not to berate staff. I'm just saying what the issue has been, and I'm just saying that we as a city need to tighten up our process a little bit more. It's not a indicative of staff. It's just the process that needs to be looked at. So, and I understand that, again, I understand that there's a lot of emotional linkage to your project, as well as the city, and some of the council members have emotional linkage to what they want to see. So I'm asking everybody here again to just realize that. And I know our words, and especially this late in the evening, could be a little stinging. So let's just try to give each other a little bit of, leeway. Okay, a little bit of consideration that, at the end of the day, we're going to disagree to disagree. Agreed to disagree in some things. So I asked the council members to just be efficient. Let's have Councilwoman Schneider and then Councilwoman.
Just for the audience out there and for the discussion that was on a recent string on Nextdoor, this particular photo or drawing is lovely. But if I recall, and I wasn't on council then, we hadn't approved the specific plan. We've since pushed for a hotel. I actually like the hotel with the driveway through it. And I'm looking forward to having drinks up there in the little planted area over that. It's going to give a nice perspective on that. It's also before BART changed its protocol to add more housing. So some of the design changes were also because BART changed its role of what should happen to their parking lots. And maybe we haven't done the best job of telling the public that that's also some of the changes that this project have gone through. Now, I'm pretty much on the record, I like Spanish Mediterranean. That's not going to happen here. And I'm okay. I actually like this design. I like that Mr. Holober pointed out that Spanish building there with the really nice roof line doesn't match the other three buildings. And now we've got 4 buildings that match. And is it going to be perfect? No. I'm not going to get Spanish. But I'm content with this part of Millbrae and the fact that it has a very modern BART station right near it, that I think they blend in well. I think right now is how can we make the public space as enjoyable for all, for our residents all over town and people coming in. Truly do dream that Millbrae is going to be that halfway point between people living in the city and people living in Silicon Valley, southern Silicon Valley, and they'll meet here to grab a beer and enjoy each other. So whereas we talked 2 weeks ago, I'd like some darker colors and a lot more drawings when the final program comes back. During the break, I spoke with your landscape architect. Another concern of bike and pedestrian was, how are we going to make this a bicycle-friendly community and be a bicycle commute route? So hopefully our bike pedestrian people and your staff are talking to each other. And I'm going to jump straight over to Art because I've got the mic. I want to give a huge thank you to Evie, I'm sorry, I just went blank. What happened really quick, which is a credit to all of Millbrae, is Evie contacted me. I put her in touch with our historical society. She went to the wrong museum, so she got to see the Historical Train Museum, our piece of art, our public art down there that is tied in with transportation. She met with the Historical Society. We brought in cultural arts at that. And to me, I thank you. I want to thank you for taking that effort of coming down. We won't see the product of that meeting. They just had it on Saturday. But I want to thank you for doing that effort, and it happened, and I want to thank City Manager Williams. It was a team effort, and I look forward to seeing what comes from it.
It was great.
Councilwoman Pappen.
Okay, thank you. First, let's stop right now. I don't appreciate anyone standing up here and say they've been before the city council for 7 years. That is just not true. They've had negotiations with BART for 3-4 years before it even got to us. This council has gone through this project in 2 years, and I don't know what staff has been telling the council or the developer here, but this city council has been elected to do a job here. And I think that job is not settling for something that can be better. And the developer has said they're willing to work with us on certain things here. I appreciate that greatly. But I think right now, for this council to say, this is, I don't agree that it's acceptable. I'm looking at the station. I'm looking at the currently proposed design here. You want to say that staff has insisted that the buildings all look the same? I'm sorry if staff went there. As the plan states, it needs to complement the existing structures there. The existing structure this does not complement. If you take a look at the picture within the specific plan of the station and the architecture presented here, it can be better. It can be more elegant, as the word was dropped here. I'm not saying it has to be perfect, but this is something we as a community, we as the residents who have been commenting on Nextdoor, can be better, can be more comparable to the structure that currently exists there, and as was proposed, if you saw some of the pictures that were sent to us of other transit center developments, not exactly like them, but I don't think this is at all the landmark, with all due respect to the architect, that we were looking for, architecturally speaking. It does not fit the existing station. It doesn't fit or complement the bank across the street or anything around there. You saw a picture of the Westin. Even that design is comparable, fits in better to what the station is now, to what's being proposed across the street on the TOD or the Musée project. Those structures complement what exists there now. I don't think this council should settle. We are here to work with the developer so that we can get something design-wise that complements what exists in the building. And even the developers, what are we calling these things? There's an NPR building that is more comparable than what is being proposed.
UDO 7.
And again, we can't bring this up to the, wish we had better technology here. Ms. Oliva asked for examples. I'm trying to point out examples. I asked that they...
Could I give you examples of your council members? We had our mayor who wanted a water feature. We had council member...
I'm sorry, Ms. Oliva, that's not the building. We're talking about the buildings here.
We're putting accents to the buildings.
I think the public deserves more than that. These are buildings we have to live with for decades to come.
We set the standard.
Hang on, guys.
And I'm asking
let's not go back and forth. Okay, that's not productive. What's productive is to like to hear everybody's opinion, whether you like it or not. Just let's have our opinions. Have everybody have the opportunity to give out their opinions, and let's not criticize each other's opinions.
Thank you for your opinion.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, to be clear, I've offered with some of the pictures here how we can improve the designs to make them more comparable to the existing structure, to the building across the street, to what's happening at like the Westin, to what's happening in the architecture all around this area. I don't find that the current design is appropriate and can be much better.
Okay.
The devil's in the details. That's what we're here to discuss.
Okay, let's moving in your same flow of thought. Do you have any suggestions on how you would, in the feel and look that you would like to see in this design?
You've got some of the structures there that were in the prior. I get that you don't want the Spanish roof, whatever there, but some of even the buildings in the prior 2014 that were advertised by this developer are more consistent with the station area. If you go down to the second design, the second picture there's another one. The third one down. Is that the one? No, let me see here. Well, you've got, I'm sorry, it would be the first one. Excuse me, sir. The very top. Keep going up, please. There, yeah, that one. Those are also designs that were advertised by this developer previously. Those I feel are much more comparable to the architecture of the iconic station. Can you see that one?
Can you be more, can you point out the features that you like? I'm not trying to be. I'm just so everybody can get on the same page.
All the features in there. You've got a glass building. You've got some wood down below. This type of architecture fits more closely with the station area, with the buildings around the area.
So this is for the residential area. You want to see the residential building look more like that?
I'd like to see consistency along these lines with all the buildings
So, okay, all right. Can we go Vice Mayor Holliber?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at UD08, which is a rendering of the BART Plaza. Yes, yes.
Do we have UD08 up there somewhere in the PowerPoint?
It's showing the current plaza.
In my opinion, it looks pretty similar to what's in that image from.
Yeah, I think last meeting we had
a little different, but it's not dramatically different from what's being proposed now.
I don't think those.
This is last week's. Nope, one more down.
Wasn't it? UD08, yes.
Problem is, there's a couple of UDs.
This one.
Yeah, I think that's the one. Oops, you were there. You were right there. There you go. That's the one.
I see UD.
It's a different version of it.
Okay, let's listen to what Vice Mayor Holliber has to say.
No, I mean I think it's congruous with what Councilmember Pappen is pointing out in the other image 1 from 2014 that we were just looking at. It's different lighting, which may make it look a bit different, but it's a similar design and similar layout of the plaza by the BART entrance.
And the glass and the wood.
Councilwoman Oliva?
Well, I was looking with Councilmember Holliber, and I would agree. Would you have the glass, the wood, the outdoors?
Yeah, is that kind of? I think that's kind of closer to what Councilwoman Pappen you were saying.
Except for to the right there, when you're talking about the apartment buildings, then it gets inconsistent to me.
I
You're
think
getting from the rendering from 2014, even the background there. I don't find the renderings on the right to be any complement.
Are you referring to the whole building or the ground floor?
Well, the ground floor, I think you can work your way up to make it a little more consistent there, but I don't. What I liked about the 2014 rendering, you can see there, is just that it's a more interesting. As you get to the right, the building's on the right. I don't know how this 2014 sets up, if that's the office space to the left and the residential to the right.
Big glass building is
Mm-hmm. So I find that the architecture from the bottom, it's workable, but as you get to the next level, not so.
Okay. Any other additions you think we should consider?
Oh, I think I've tried to point out as many examples as I can here. You've got the pictures from the Westin. You've got the ones that were advertised by the developer back in 2014, I think. And I don't care what staff represented here. I think we, as a council, need to be complementary to the existing architecture and the architecture like the bank and the surrounding thing, and the architecture that's happening even at the airport area. I don't think that if you look at some of the other ones that are been proposed at other transit centers, to me, what's being proposed right now looks like several buildings that are happening in South City right now. And I don't think those structures complement Millbrae. So
I think, you want something different. So I think what we want to do tonight is if staff and our representatives from the developers just take it in and take notes. That would and council members just give their view of what they see as their vision. We can move this along a lot quicker.
We have everything we need. If we're ready to go. If you're done, we're done. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one speaker slip. I want to give this opportunity to speak about the signage. Constancio Rodriguez, is that? I'm sorry. I hope I didn't butcher your name too badly.
Good evening. Constancio Rodriguez, a resident of Millbrae. I was just pointing out that since there's two different projects, TOD1 and TOD2, maybe there's a way of actually making whatever kind of style, design, signage, and letterings that the council decides on to go with to apply it to the other project as well, just so that there's going to be uniformity instead of different projects having totally different designs. Maybe there's a way of actually some sort of uniformity with how the signage looks like and the design to carry over, just to kind of like make it a little bit more incorporated as a big whole project instead of subsections of different looking signage. And it may be easier to travel from one side to the other looking at similar signage and letterings. As far as fonts, if it's vertical instead of horizontal, and even the font styles and stuff like that. So I was just wondering if the council members can, my suggestion is that maybe it's something to look into if there's a way to kind of like have the signage more or less uniform between the two projects. Once you've decided which fonts and designs you decide to go with. Thank you.
Thank you. Former Mayor Colapietro wanted to comment.
I just want to comment about
Thank you.
to remind the council that you are 5 individuals. Each one of you has your own preference, your own likes, your own dislikes. You have a right to express that. But I always have thought that we should never compromise ourselves. If one thing is how you feel, that's how you feel. And you're going to come to a time when you're going to have to vote on it. And you don't compromise yourself. But at least express your feelings. Don't drag it into a wall. My personal feeling is the pictures from 2014, the Westin Hotel, those are old buildings. They have their particular niche. And I think that when someone was reading something and in the one of the rules or whatever was read, is that we need to build something that's going to last a long time, and that doesn't necessarily have to go back to the 2014 things. Councilmember Pappen expressed that that's what she liked, and that's what she liked. But each of you have your own opinion. You all have a right to express it. You have people here who say they are writing things, they take attention, and this is the same way that they came close to what other council members at other times and you council members have expressed. So I just feel very badly. I was almost brought to tears while this arguing was going on, and I almost got up and left. And as that Councilmember Olivas indicated, we don't need to hear about this in tomorrow's Daily Journal. So there's a certain demeanor that we need to keep. Hold on to your integrity. You compromised. I've seen over the months that some of you have compromised and gone and agreed with each other. And that's what it's all about. But in the end, it only takes, when it comes to vote, it only takes 3 votes. So just be mindful of yourself and what you like, and respect each other, and whatever comes to be by 3 votes, if that's what has to happen when that time comes. So thank you very much, and I hope that you folks can continue to be respectful toward each other. Just because someone likes something that's in the past, that's fine. So the red light is on, so thank you very much.
Well, Pietro. Dr. DeNegro.
I've been trying to distill down what it is about the building that makes me feel like it's not really something unique or different. This is, I guess it's called a mid-rise podium or mid-rise wrap. These seem very common style to almost every single one of these buildings up and down the peninsula. I bike the peninsula. I bike by a building that looks exactly like this over and over and over again. It's not unique. It's not iconic. The only way I know it's Millbrae is there's a sign on it that says Millbrae. And that's, I think, what really distills down to me as being the problem, is that it's not standing out as being an icon of our community. And this is what we're going to see, is the same pedestrian type of feel of every other one of these buildings that they're building. And I'd like to see something unique and different, something that stands out and makes us think that a sense of pride about that building. I guess that's my point.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Mr. Alex Melendrez. Melendrez, good to see you.
Hello, Millbrae City Council and staff. My name is Alex Melendrez. I represent the Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo County, or HLC. For those who don't know, HLC is a nonprofit dedicated towards working with communities and their leaders to produce and preserve quality, affordable homes. The City Council has made its decision on gateways, building shapes, sizes, materials, and location. We don't feel like this should be discussed to death. We'd rather not see any further delays for this needed housing. Your resolution also stated that the proposed development complies with goals, policies, and design guidelines that the Millbrae Station Area Specific Plan, including required standards in open spaces, circulations, and off-street parking. I think I read that wrong, but complies with the plan. This HLC endorsed development isn't just a smart growth development. You are on the verge of creating 400 homes. 400 homes that include 100 for low-income families. There are too many vulnerable populations like seniors, veterans, and public service workers who are being pushed out of their home cities, like Millbrae, who are dependent on new developments, new affordable developments, to stay in the cities they love. The alternative shouldn't be long commute hours, especially considering the proposed home's location to what is arguably one of the best transit hubs in the Bay. HLC would like to thank the City Council and staff for your leadership in moving these needed homes forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Do you want to continue? Or?
Yeah. I mean, that's our job. We're supposed to be talking about the design here. We've approved the housing, as was noted. Other cities and other towns are taking double the years to do so. So Millbrae is doing their best here, but it is something that we have to live with here. And I agree with Dr. Del Negro that we could go down to South City and pick out similar buildings throughout the peninsula here. Looking for something design-wise that will better complement the station and the architecture that's going in right across the way, the other side of the tracks, I think does that more so than what is currently being proposed here. So I hope that we can see in the next rendering here something that will more complement what's being proposed here, and I encourage the public too. The council here is struggling, as former Mayor Colapietro pointed out. We have our varying opinions. Please share your opinions with the council too. You have to live in Millbrae, and we all have to live with these projects here. So we want to get your feedback as well. So please, it's not necessarily going backwards. I will disagree with former Mayor Colapietro here. I just think the previous designs that were advertised by the developer are more consistent, especially as far as the housing units are currently proposed. The hotel and office space, I think we're heading more so in the right direction, but the housing units, I definitely think we can do better, we should do better, and we should not be deterred from what our job is. And the job is that we are to do the design review here, and we are to communicate the issues that we have as presented, and hopefully can work through to the benefit of all of Millbrae and everyone when the project is done. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're coming up to 10:30, and we still have closed session. So what is this council's pleasure? Do you want to go up to 11 o'clock and have a closed session, or do you want to end this discussion in the next 10 minutes and go to closed session? You want to go to 11 o'clock on this?
I think we're just about done, are we?
I don't know if we're done. So is that where we're going to go 11 o'clock then for this discussion and then go to closed session?
That's a good point.
I don't know. I think when you come to some sort of consensus, but this is a study session. There's no decisions being made, so it doesn't matter. So we all make. Let me finish. We all make our comments. And my question to you is: do you want to make your comments up to 10:40, or do you want to make it up to 11 o'clock? That's up to you.
Well, I have a few comments left. I don't have many.
Okay, you're talking your mic so people at home hear. Thank you.
I don't need much more than 10 minutes. But I don't know what the rest of the council needs.
Well, my question is: do you guys want to continue this discussion till 11 o'clock? That's the bottom line.
Yes, let's finish our studies.
Okay, so we have 3 people who want to go. That's fine. Okay, so I haven't heard that much from this side, so I'd like to hear what is your take? What is it that you want to see in design-wise, or not the details, but overall arching design and what you want to see?
Do you want me to go first? So I like the comment from Dr. Del Negro about being iconic, and I think that it doesn't necessarily mean that what has been proposed is not. What I think it takes for us as a council is to participate in ideas, not just criticism and critiques necessarily, but to bring ideas like. I like the mayor's idea with a water fixture of some sort in the place where it's a gathering spot. It's like, let's go to the fountain kind of deal. I like the idea where our council member, Holliber, came and just made a little slight change towards that one corner. So it gave it a better look to it. I like what Councilmember Schneider's been doing with the arts. I think that's going to be really something you're engaged with and your forte, or it could be another gathering point of some sort, something that people are attracted to. And the dog park that quite possibly could come about with on the art walk without the busy art possibly, but right on that site, so that it attracts people. And I think that in that fashion we can stand out. I mean, with anything in building and construction and architect, history takes a place in time and it takes a look. And that's what we're seeing. And we weren't the first. So it's a good look, and that's why it's being used a lot. But I would agree with making it, we need a destination of some sort, and I think that's where we could be valuable as a council.
to come up for ideas with the needs of our community.
Yeah, well, I think that was all very well stated, and I agree with with Councilman Pappan and Commissioner Del Negro that I think uniqueness is something that we should try to embrace, and that there are. I think there's a lot to like in these designs. I don't have that many criticisms or critiques. I think looking at this slide here, this entryway by the BART Plaza, I think that has the opportunity to be one of the unique elements and perhaps iconic areas of the development, as well as the entrance right at Rollins Road and Millbrae Avenue. So, I mean, I think going forward, perhaps if this plaza could be jazzed up in some way that makes it, a water feature, maybe an archway between the two buildings, some type of enhancement that would make it a bit more iconic and add some flavor to Millbrae. But other than that, I'm pretty impressed by most of the architectural elements and the public art and landscaping that has been included in the project.
So, Mr. Mayor, I just have a staff question of the council member.
Sure.
On UD 08A that you brought up, which is this elevation, if you turn to that page, and on the top right, there's also a rendering, and I think that the difference is the buildings step back and they're undulated more instead of having just that linear frontage. And it kind of creates that environment that I think that you may be, and not to put words in your mouth, I don't know, that's why I'm asking the question, that it just seems to be more villagey and more friendly.
I'm sorry, what are you referring to?
On UD 08A.
08A, I don't see A.
Manager, we have 3 different documents, and some of them all have UAs
So
or
this
UDs.
This is the 6/24/2016 rendering.
Can I just add one thing? Tomorrow,
We're really rolling up our sleeves tonight, so I figured that I just want to make sure that
I'm sorry.
that we're using this and we're able to then go back to the architect and back to the applicant.
Which one are we going
to try to achieve? Yeah, just as an example. I mean, I may be wrong, but so I'm asking the question. But.
You can I.
So the top right rendering versus the one in the center. I labeled them 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also a little bit more texture in the building that's presented here that I think could help.
So maybe that I think that's good direction back to the architect is varying textures
and it's not a dramatic change to the design.
Right, not a dramatic change, but just a little subtleness that actually creates a little bit of a more inviting plaza area.
U08A as an apple. UD? I don't have A.
This is that.
Some is the front page of every
okay.
All looks the same.
In this, but they're
Can I?
So I mean, we're just looking for kind of that feedback that the architect can go back and work their magic if it's something that we feel that will improve the feel
Councilwoman
of the area.
I agree with Mr. Hulber, but tomorrow night we're going to talk about balconies and the downside of balconies over public spaces, meaning cigarette butts and garbage and or profanity. I met with the residents of Hemlock, and that was some of their greatest concerns over the balconies on the project we're going to talk about tomorrow. But I'd like to see that. I wanted to go back. Mr. Arardi, I think you mentioned roof lines, and I know I mentioned 2 weeks ago that I like that new little lift that you put on the affordable building, and you talked about maybe changing some of the roof line. it's got a lot of undulation. Maybe we could have a little bit more, but maybe the roof line could have something that's more reflective of the wings over the BART station, like you did with the affordable housing building on that. But I completely agree that whatever the buildings are, they're eventually going to be older. But what we need are spaces that are energized, that are attractive, that can be adaptive. Mr. Holiber's idea of an overpass, I have to admit I'm still taking down Christmas decorations. But when you have certain features in there, it lets you decorate for different seasons or different events. And maybe you think about how that plaza might be used for Valentine's Day or Easter, or when you have performances on the BART Plaza, but creating something that can also be adapted for decorating.
If I looked at the same pictures down here, one thing that really stands out to me is that nobody's talking about the office building. The office building, everybody doesn't seem to have any problem with. But it's the resident building that seems to be the problem here. People are having a lot of disagreements about. And if I notice, there's a lot of broken up geometry, which makes it interesting and appealing on the office building. But it's not the same for the residential. It's very flat. It's very pedestrian. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. And disrespectful. And I see that Councilwoman Pappin's description of South San Francisco. I don't think she's trying to diss on South San Francisco, but I think what she's trying to say, that's South San Francisco architecture. We don't want to mimic South San Francisco architecture. And I agree with Councilwoman Schneider and Vice Mayor Holliber that you have an iconic building right next to it. It's iconic. It looks like, and it's the same as, it's kind of the same feature as the airport. It's the waves and or the seagull type of thing, and there's none of that soft flow that's happening in the residential part. So I think some architectural. Maybe you don't have to change the whole building, but add some architectural features that makes it look a lot more like it's flowing. You can make curved glass maybe, or I don't think you can do much with the roof, but if you're going to do something with the building, you should make it similar to what you have in your office building, because you have one side that's standing out and the other side is kind of doesn't really fit in with the other side. So that would be my suggestion. And so if there's anything else. Okay, so this is a study session, yes.
So we were talking in general, architecturally
Right.
speaking here. And so whatever modifications hopefully can be made here too, I've always been concerned the affordable housing unit is not just an afterthought, that the same consideration goes into that building as well. And we had talked about some of these architectural enhancements, the triangles and stuff. I don't know where that came out, but I think we had some concerns as a council. It's like 6A there, those designs. So I want to make sure those messages are, and then there was the blank wall, which we haven't heard back on, and a lot of heads are nodding. Okay.
I think they reported that. They mentioned that in the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
Those
All right.
two, the triangles still.
Just wanted to be consistent as we were going through the process. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that we concluded with our comments. Any other comments for tonight?
Clarification then. What happens next?
I think if staff and developers have enough comments, they will come back to us in either I think it's probably going to be a hearing, right? Next step? Planning, yeah, planning with hearing and planning, and then hearing with city council, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So for the public, so they make whatever modifications and it goes to planning and comes back here? Or how does this work?
Yeah, so planning will, they will present to planning and planning at a hearing, and planning will just make an advisement to the council if they feel that it should go forward or not. and then we will have the final. Yes.
Just to be clear, the general design review process goes to the Planning Commission. They have the ability to make the final decision on it. The council has the ability to call up that decision and make it itself. And the council has made it clear many months ago that for these projects it intended to do that. So just so we're clear, that we need to look at it as though the Planning Commission might make the final decision, because you may all change your mind and not pull it up, but essentially we're expecting that we will call it up and it will be before the
normal
So
process.
let's be clear, Mr. Mayor. I think this is too important a project for us not to call it up after planning.
We've already. That's what the attorney's already said.
He's clarifying it for the record. I think he wants confirmation.
When we say it's normal, no, we've already made that decision in April last year.
If I may, this just sort of some confusion out in the public or the applicant. It's not an appeal. It's the same.
No, I know. We've already made that
as a Chevron gas station. Exactly.
In April, right. So yeah, and the normal process is the Planning Commission makes a decision, and unless the council has a problem with it, then it goes to appeal to the council in a normal process. But in April of last year, we've already said as a council that we wanted to have the final say in this design. So, but it still has to go through the Planning Commission. So that's it. Okay. All right. So there's no other. I'm going to skip public comments tonight, if that's okay. Are there any other comments you wanted to add?
One comment. Again, thank you for all your comments. We really appreciate it. We look forward to coming back to Planning Commission and you and moving forward.
Thank you. All right. So I'm just going to adjourn this meeting so we can go to closed session. If that's okay.
Can you? Yes. Closing in memory.
Oh yeah, and let me make close this and thank you very much. And that's it, Captain Walter Ramsier. Oh, excuse me, guys. This is really important. Walter was a very dedicated and luminary in our community, and we just want to give due to Walter, the husband of former mayor, former president of the Board of Supervisor, Mary Griffin. And he was a member of the Millbrae Historical Society and a Rotary Club and many other charities. And he lived a very illustrious life. And I was very honored when I was mayor, to honor him when he was 90-something years old, 89 years old. So that was pretty amazing. So we're going to close in his honor. And we're sorry to see him gone. Thank you.